Video going live.
Okay, I got 6 o'clock. Let's call this May 5th, 2025 Battleground City Council study session to order. And I believe Ms. Kristen, are you starting us off?
Liz, it sounds like he's having some problems getting in. So sorry. I'll read you what he said. Okay. Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. We will be providing you with a status update this evening of our exciting topic, which is our comprehensive plan update. It's been a while since we shared with you. Our consultant, Ben Hahn with Burke Consulting, will be joining us momentarily once he can get in through Zoom. He has a PowerPoint presentation. So between Ben and our planning supervisor, Sam Crummett, we'll be sharing our presentation with you with an update, and then we'll have some questions. Well, if you have questions, we will have time for questions. We also have some boards here that we will be using for visual aids as we talk through some of the points. With that being said, do you want me to share or do you have it queued up? Okay. So again, Burke Consulting will be joining us virtually. They're not on the call yet. We'll go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint presentation, do kind of a quick where we're at. So we're going to do a high level kind of comprehensive plan 101, touch on some of the element updates, as well as some of the House Bill 2020 framework. If you're not familiar, the comprehensive plan or comp plan is a 20-year guiding document. It helps us plan for our community. It has a bunch of different elements that we focus on. We are required to update it every 10 years. So we're currently kind of in the middle of updating for the 2045 vision. This allows us to be part of the plan and looking ahead to what we want our community to be. We do this in partnership with Clark County as well as other local cities. Looks like Ben is joining and he will be much better at talking through these slides than I am. Ben, if you can hear me, I started the presentation. We're on the first comprehensive planning slide here. I don't know if you want to take over and share or if you want me to just screen through for you.
Yeah, if you don't, I can pick it up from here if you like. And then if you don't mind scrolling through the slides, I can let you know.
Okay, sounds great. And are you able to hear and see okay?
I hear everything fine. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Good evening, everybody. Apologies for delay. Been having some issues with Zoom just leading up to this meeting. But just to reintroduce myself, my name is Ben Hahn. I'm with Burke Consulting, been working with Sam and Kristen over the last year and a half or so on this comprehensive plan update. And I'll just pick up, I guess, where Kristen left off. And so this is, I think Kristen might give us context already, but if not, like, this is a presentation that we've given to our open house about last week. And we provided some more information on what we've heard at that open house, as well as some additional information on the House Bill 1220 requirement for this comp plan update. And when thinking about why we need to do a comp plan, other than just its periodic update, it allows for a way for a city to have a vision and framework for housing and job growth within the city of Battleground for the next 20 years. And in terms of how this relates to the statewide process, part of our work has been working with Clark County, ensuring that we're reporting what the county is doing for their comp plan update, to ensure that we are helping the county meet our designated targets for housing and job growth for the next 20 years, as well as, of course, meeting all the new various updates that have come from the growth management update as well too. This has been a multi-year planning process from the beginning, and so outside of this comprehensive plan project, I know the city of Battleground has also done a community vision plan. And so part of this work too is to incorporate what we heard through our public engagement process from past plans that are helping inform this comprehensive plan update today. And so this includes thinking about the community vision plan, housing action plan, which we'll dive into more a little bit later, as well as our land use master plan, which included a preferred land use alternative for the city to adopt as part of this comprehensive plan update. And ensuring that the recommendations that we make through the comp plan when adopted provides policies and goals that help facilitate future development that this council and the city would like to see that's consistent with the city's vision for growth. Next slide, please, Kristen. And so again, the comp plan all ties back to the Growth Management Act. And so making sure that we are planning for our allocated target of housing and job growth. These projections and these numbers come from the Office of Financial Management, or FM. And as part of Clark County, we are required to work with both the county and the cities within the county to help dictate where growth can go and meet the full requirement under the Growth Management Act. Next slide, please, Kristen. And so in terms of what the topics are covered with the comprehensive plan, each chapter in the comp plan is called an element. And so each element has specific goals and policies with some background information, which we at Burke Consulting has provided some updated community profile for. And so when thinking about what's required for a comprehensive plan, the elements that you see in this box are what's required. And so includes land use, housing, capital facilities, which includes thinking about schools, police, and fire to ensure that we have the capacity to serve the people living in Battleground, utilities, transportation, parks, recreation, open space, the environment, which ensures consistency with the Shoreline Management Act, economic development, and a new element in which we are required to adopt as part of this comprehensive plan update is around climate. Some optional elements that the city has also adopted as part of their past comp plan update includes a livability element, which looks at urban design standards for a city to ensure that development, architecture, essentially the vibe and sort of the aesthetics of the city matches community vision, as well as a sub-area plan update for the old downtown area of the city of Battleground. Next slide, please. Yes. As I mentioned, one of the new bills that was recently passed by state law is House Bill 1181. This requires the city of Battleground to adopt a climate element as part of its comprehensive plan update. The climate element is composed of two sub-elements. One looks at climate resilience. So I'm thinking about how a city can adapt for, as we see more instances of wildfire, smoke, heavy precipitation, or even drought, that the city has strategy in place to ensure that people are still able to get to their job or being able to adapt to more future severe climate events, as well as a greenhouse gas emissions reduction sub-element, which the goal is to reach a goal of net zero emissions by 2050, and also thinking about strategies to reduce the amount of emissions that we produce locally within the city. And all this work, both the climate element and the comprehensive plan, is being paid for by a grant from the Washington Department of Commerce. Next slide, please. And so when thinking about goals and objectives for this climate element, essentially we'll be looking at policies that looks at ways for us to manage the impacts of climate change. And so I'm ensuring that we have proper infrastructure upgrades, thinking about disaster management, emergency management. Do we have dedicated evacuation routes, for example, as well as strategies in thinking about mitigating the root causes of climate change. And so ensuring that we're investing in sustainable transportation, that buildings are energy efficient and reducing waste. And of course, there are strategies that sort of fall into both. And so one common theme we've heard a lot in our engagement process, not just unique to Battleground, but for statewide, is thinking about tree canopy coverage, creating more walkable neighborhoods, which is another common theme I've heard in our engagement efforts with city, and thinking about potential retrofits as needed to ensure that we are reducing our energy consumption within the city. So next slide. And so this section covers through what Burke and the consultant team will be doing with each of the elements associated with the comprehensive plan. And so this is kind of giving kind of the big hits of what's been done. And so for land use, I know that the city has adopted a land use master plan in June of 2021. And so utilizing that lump plan, we are currently developing a land capacity analysis to understand what our capacity is for housing and job growth in the city. And we have to demonstrate to the county how we are meeting the targets that they've established for us. With regards to housing, I know that we've adopted a housing action plan in June of 2021. And so a lot of those policy recommendations will be integrated into the housing element. One of the questions, you might have heard a lot of conversation around middle housing typologies or things like duplexes, townhomes, fourplexes. And so we're not currently pursuing any new ordinances around that because the city is currently not required to adopt an ordinance around that. And then, of course, House Bill 1220, which looks at cities requiring to demonstrate meeting housing at various affordability levels. And so, and I'll be going through a little bit later in this presentation on how we are demonstrating our ability to meet housing at all income levels. For transportation, a transportation plan is updated also in 2021, but there'll be additional updates to the transportation element to ensure that we're aligning with the climate element. And so this is looking at primarily looking at gaps and opportunities for new ped and bike infrastructure, such as sidewalks or bike lane, and also thinking about developing a multimodal level of service for streets to better understand sort of how various modes of transportation looks like within a city. Capital facilities, as I mentioned, will be providing an update to facilities within the city, as well as looking at our capital improvement program. And so again, making sure that there are appropriate levels of service for schools, police, and fire as we think about how we accommodate our growing population. Utilities will update as needed, but I know the city is also currently doing a stormwater comprehensive plan update as well. And for parks, recreation, open space, a lot of this work has already been done with the adoption of a PROS plan back in July of 2022. And so really, again, you'll see this recurring thing of like making sure we're integrating past work that's been done by the city already. And then lastly, economic development, just continuing to update information around job growth in the city. Livability, really kind of focusing around the concept of a 20-minute neighborhood. Or again, like thinking about like, if depending on where you live, like, do you have access to things that you need within a 20-minute walk? Also thinking about arts and culture initiatives as well as youth. And then lastly, for the environment, just making sure we're integrating policies and goals adopted through the Shoreline Master Plan update, which was last updated in June of 2021. Kristen, I wasn't sure, just a quick clarification, would it be helpful to take questions in between sections, or should I just go through the rest of the presentation and then take questions at the end?
Excuse me, if you guys are okay with questions at the end, or would you like to pause now?
I'm fine either way. I could pause here to see if there's any clarifying questions around anything presented so far. And then if not, then I can continue sort of the application of what we've done with our comp plan so far to date.
Okay, I think we're okay. Just keep it on, Ben, and then we'll pause at the end for questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so I also want to say, like, again, like this is a presentation we've given at Open House back in April 29th. And we had maybe about 20 people present at that open house. And so I just wanted to give some high level takeaways of what we've heard from that presentation. And so there are 4 key themes that we've heard. The first is that many of the open house participants noticed that there was a strong correlation between areas with impervious surface coverage or like asphalt, concrete, with sort of correlation to the intensity of the heat island effect within the city. And so there is a desire to see, excuse me, more trees within the city of Battleground, both as a strategy to help address heat island effect or provide lower temperatures in the city, but also as an aesthetic appeal of having more street trees within the city overall. People really valued their park spaces. People really enjoyed going to their parks, particularly for walks, and which is not really much of a surprise knowing that through the pros plan update, one of the key wishes that people had was to see more trails for people to walk on, and so parks, walking trails was a strong correlation from our open house. There was also a lot of interest in seeing more placemaking opportunities. What that means is that just trying to see more arts and cultural events in the city. Traditionally, like Battleground might have been perceived as a bedroom community, but really strong desire to see the city of Battleground also be a place, a local and regional destination for people to visit. Few of the events mentioned in the past that people really liked was the First Friday Art Walks or the Harvest Days events, and realizing correlation between having these fun events and how it supports small businesses within the city. And lastly, there were a few comments around in thinking about more housing, that there should be some opportunities for more infill housing. And so rather than expanding out, prioritizing new housing development where there is infrastructure already. And so it actually could help reduce costs for any potential expansions of infrastructure and provide closer proximity to social and economic opportunities. Next slide, please. And lastly, these last few slides, I want to give a little more information about House Bill 1220. And so City Battleground is required to demonstrate how the city will be providing housing at various affordability levels, meaning like making sure we're providing housing for folks who are of a moderate income, low income, very low income, as well as above moderate and high income as well. And so primarily in thinking about this, this is probably our first step into this conversation, but typically one of the ways to look at that is thinking about density. And so when thinking about a low density neighborhood, oftentimes the housing topology that's associated with that are detached single family homes. And then as we get into more of a moderate density, a little bit higher density, you might see some additional typologies such as a duplex or a townhome, which are already currently permitted within the city's land use code. And as you get higher up, you'll enter a low-rise multifamily zoning category, which include maybe apartments that you can walk up to, or even like a 3-story apartment building. And lastly, thinking about a mid-rise multifamily, this could be seen as like an apartment or condominium building about 4 to 6 stories tall. Manufactured housing is not listed in this sort of zoning designation conversation just because by law they are required in all residential zones. And so taking this sort of like as a baseline, what I did is we looked at the existing zoning designations within the city of Battleground where housing is allowed. And so with that, we started looking at sort of associated housing topologies with the zoning designation. So you'll see that with the table on the right. And so what this table shows is that thinking about types of homes that you might see at each of these zoning designations, and then also looked at our max density that's currently allowed in those zoning designations, and any potential additional bonuses that can be built as well. And so within case of Battleground, the only additional bonus we looked at was around with accessory dwelling units. And so currently, we're currently permitting those in areas that are predominantly zoned for a residential use. And then with that, we sorted Battleground zoning destinations into a low, moderate, or a high density category, but predominantly in a high density focusing around low-rise multifamily. Next slide, please. And then again, in thinking about each of these densities, thinking about at what income level are they most likely to serve at a market rate level. And so thinking about our lowest residential zonations, such as an R3 or R5, typically you could consider designating that as housing for households at a higher income. And typically with subsidies or incentives, you can't really financially pencil out affordable housing options. And then as you go higher in the types of density that's allowed, it's more feasible to have more affordable housing options available. And then lastly, for ADUs, because there's allowed on all residential lots, typically they could serve, because of their smaller size nature, serving folks either at a low to moderate income level. And so that's, and then the table on the right shows what our initial allocation is from Clark County. I will note that this is an ongoing process with the county right now. I think there might be some potential for some wiggle room on the numbers changing, but I think for now it's pretty safe to say that what the county has given us is a fair starting place in thinking about how we're thinking about affordable housing. And so what the table on the right shows is that for a city of Battleground, we have to demonstrate adding 6,975 units from 2023 to 2045. And then the rows beneath this shows the allocation by area median income. PSH is for permanent supportive housing. So typically those at the 0 to 30% AMI level. But also want to note that our comprehensive plan update is to demonstrate housing growth from 2020 to 2045. And so we also have the numbers of how much housing was built in Battleground between the years 2020 and 2023. And so with that, that's a lot of information and actually the end of my presentation as well. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Questions, council, chime in?
I got one for you. So when we're looking at the climate part of this now, is that playing into, so when we're going to the county and we're asking to expand and we're asking for more lands for jobs and stuff like that, is there any type of weight that's given for the climate? Because I see on there they want less miles driven and stuff like that, but if you're not going to give us lands for jobs, then we got to drive more miles to get to those jobs. So are they weighing that at all, or are they just, is that just a buzzword that they're throwing out there that, hey, we want this climate thing, but we really don't, we're really not going to do anything about it. We just want to have it because that's the new thing to say.
Well, when we're planning for a climate element, we are incorporating the UJ adjustments that's currently proposed to go expand west into Dollars Corner. And so the climate element does take the adjusted boundary into consideration. In terms of thinking about strategies, I say like from other cities I worked with, a lot of the work actually that comes even for something like reducing greenhouse gas emissions, we don't have to do that much because there's already a lot of other state policies and laws in effect where that will positively impact what our emission rate is for the city of Battleground. In terms of thinking about additional strategies, I do want to stress that like we have a really incredible advisory team of community members who are helping think through on strategies that they would like the city to see to take on. And so it could really be things like, like what are strategies for us to ensure that that kids can play outside during a soccer game, or what are strategies to ensure that like if there is a fire or if an event of a severe weather event, like do I know what to do? Do I understand what can I do to be safe in my home, or when do I know when to leave my home, and do I know what the proper evacuation route is? And so I guess a long way of saying like there's a lot of work that's been done already, and I think there'll be a lot of interesting policy recommendations as well that may not seem as what's the word? I think there are a lot of great opportunities as well too. Even something like seeing more tree canopy within the city. We are currently doing a street tree canopy assessment of the city right now, and a part of that work will be recommendations for additional street trees. And if there's anything I learned with climate planning in Washington State so far is that seeing more trees on your street where you live is often a win-win scenario.
I think to maybe try to answer Council Member Bellman's question, our growth plans preceded the climate planning. So, this goes back years where Battleground wanted to bring in more jobs nearby out to Dollars Corner. So I think that that's first. And then with our climate planning, I think that it plays into it to some degree because by bringing more jobs closer to Battleground, that means that people aren't having to drive into Portland or Vancouver. That's absolutely going to fit in with climate planning. Like Ben said, we have a committee that's going to be working on and making recommendations to you as a council to consider how we're going to meet our climate planning requirements. One thing we've learned that I think will fit in well with climate planning and that we've directed Burke and the consultant teams on is trails, and trails is a high priority for our citizens. That we keep hearing that from some of our recreation surveys. So we want to focus on designing Battleground to have alternative ways of getting around the community. Instead of jumping in your car to get a gallon of milk, you could walk or ride your bike. And I think that's something that is in place now, and we want to continue that. And that fits in with climate planning. That climate planning is so broad. It's, and I think it's a learning curve for all of us. Exactly what does this mean? But yeah, I'll just pause there.
So the only reason I brought it up is because, and I forget what year it was, Sam, you probably remember when there was an in-cycle update and we were asking for, I think we may have taken it all the way out to 92nd at that time. And we asked for a little bit more and the county kicked it back, said no. And we're hearing from other jurisdictions around here about farmlands, what is farmlands, those type of thing. And everybody out here thinks they live on a farm. None of them live on a farm. Okay. I came from a farm. I know what a farm is. It's got to make some money. You live in a tax haven is what you live on, and you call it what you want to call it. But none of this is farmland, and so that's the battle that we always have is how do we expand? How do we fight that battle of 5-acre supposed farms, those type of things as we're going out? And do you guys think, in your opinion, do you think that we will be able to grab what we wanted to grab out to Dollars Corner with these type of things, with the climate part of it, and be able to sell that to the county and in turn to the state, and then fight with river keepers and everybody else who's going to be filing lawsuits?
Yeah, I think our 2021 land use study showed that we're targeting the right amount out to Dollars Corner. We've done the study. Like what you mentioned, when we tried to go out just 80 acres and we got shot down.
Yeah.
The courts basically said Battleground failed to do what's called reasonable measures. And that means you need to demonstrate that you can grow within your existing city boundaries before you can ask for more land.
Yeah.
So we did this study. It shows absolutely we can justify going out that far. I've had conversations with representatives from some of the environmental groups, and they think our growth plan is modest and supportable.
Good.
I do have a slide I want to share with our council at the end of this, which shows some agricultural land around Battleground.
Before we get to that, can
Oh.
we stay on that slide?
Sure.
I just had a question. So I'm looking at this on the far right, and by my napkin math, 20 to 23, that's about, well, it's 100, 280 a year, something like that. 166 a year. 20 to 45, that's about 300 a year. So twice the growth. But our need for growth is the higher AMI, which is the lower density, right? So which brings me to the question about the map. I'm looking at some of this, and my question, I'll get to a question eventually, I promise. The question is the bottom right where, you know, like where we show R20 surrounded by R3. And as I sat in on the C-Tran visioning map, they have no transit going there ever. So I'm curious, at what point does transit and future development marry up, and is the best time for council to advocate for a zoning change now or later, or where are we at on the timing of that zoning is with respect to transit, with respect to our growth goals, when they basically say we should be looking at more lower density is, I mean, especially compared to our sister cities. So when would be a good time, in your opinion, for council to advocate for some zoning changes on that map?
Right now.
Okay.
Is the time. And we have been talking with transit, and they've met with this at least a couple times. And so they've asked us specifically, where do you intend to grow? Where do you see your density happening? And we're continuing to share those maps. And if, you know, and they're also talking about future routes, and if this council has ideas on what makes sense.
Agreed. I mean, and I get it. We need some R20, we need all kinds, but I'm looking at something that has a 1 in, 1 out. The old Cedars went there for the park grand
Mhm.
opening, and I don't know, that one just jumped out at me. That one doesn't make much sense. At the far southeast corner of the city. And those are all 1 acre county lots. So
Tell me exactly.
the southeast corner of your map,
Yeah, yeah, you can see Cedars Golf Course in there.
boom. Yeah, is that R20 right there, right where your finger?
And
Okay,
that's outside of our urban growth.
but we're also deciding what that's going to look like within our urban growth boundary, right? So this would be the time if we were to have an opinion on that, because that doesn't fit. Okay. Well, then just ignore me per usual. But yeah, okay, good. Because there's no transit going there. I think the 2045 C-Tran had kind of a box around, you know, involved Eaton, Onsdorf, and those type of major thoroughfares. So perfect. And then my other question before we go on to your other slide, we talked about compliance earlier on. It had with respect to the climate portion of it, as the county potentially going out of compliance with GMA. Would that affect us individually as a city from a grant perspective, or just would it be if we go out of compliance and we extend it, is it a staff time cost only? Or are we at risk if county's out of compliance of losing grants for compliance with GMA?
I don't know. It's a little bit of a complicated question because there's an aspect of where we as Battleground are independent from the county with our comp plan. However, we also are, we also share their environmental impact statement. So us and all the other cities are in the county's environmental impact study, which is where we're in right now. So, I don't know. My take is we all have to do this together, and
At the very least, it
if-
costs us staff time though.
typically if the county's out of compliance in some areas, sometimes the other cities get implicated too for some of the same reasons, but
Okay.
I think we'll just have to tread carefully on that one.
And then my last question, going back to the tree site, are we a tree city? If not, is there advantage to becoming one? We aren't one currently that I'm aware of. Are there any benefits to becoming one? Or are there? No,
Go to Lake Oswego.
I mean,
That's a tree city. And the amount of, like, to cut a tree down, like if you have a tree on your property that falls on Lake Oswego, you should see what you have to do to replace that tree and the amount of money it costs to
Okay.
do that.
so so what I'm hearing from my deputy mayor is it'd be more advantageous maybe to incentivize. But I think some of it is our streets and our city is fairly young. So some of the trees just haven't matured. And I think like you look at Scotton, and I mean, if people could stop running over the trees, they'd have a better chance. But you know, as those grow up, I could see some of that will take care of itself. So just anyway, that was it. What a tree city would look like. I don't know.
To become a tree city USA, you have to maintain a tree board. or department have a tree care ordinance, implement a community forestry program with an annual budget, and you have to celebrate or proclaim Arbor Day, which can just mean planting a tree. Longview has been Tree City of USA for a really long time.
By law, that'd be the deputy mayor, I believe, right? Would have to do that.
No. Wait, it's gonna conflict directly with development. Wait till development goes and decides to, I mean, look what happened right out here on Rasmussen when Akins developed all that out and cut down 2 white oaks. And the community went nuts over, we drive by there every day, we see these trees. It makes things so much more costly, but our development codes, because we have the, what is it? The one that I hate that we've never talked about in 14 years, Mark. The standard of putting buildings on the sidewalks and trees.
Legacy standard?
The legacy standard, yes, that Lake Oswego and Sherwood and all them have too. That requires trees to be planted in the planter strips and in the new areas. But tree cities, I think, are different because that affects like removing trees or doing anything.
Yeah, I think it can. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, never mind. So anyway, I didn't want to delay Sam's slide because I think it's an important one. So thank you.
Oh,
Unless anybody else had any questions, I didn't see any. Sorry.
I'll give you just a quick kind of time frame where we're at. We have to have our comp plan done by the end of this year, December of 2025. Currently, we're in the stage of looking at growth alternatives. Battleground pretty much has its preferred growth alternative. And Ben with Burke kind of shared where we're at on housing and jobs, and we have a map of what that looks like. We also included when the county requested our growth alternatives, they wanted us to have at least 2 alternatives. So we showed our preferred alternative, which comes out of that 2021 study that I mentioned. And then there was like half a dozen people that just wanted to be in the city, including several parcels that are owned by State Department of Natural Resources. So we kind of included those on one map, but we can't just randomly pick parcels. We have to show, first of all, that it's the right place to grow, and then we have to justify why we need more residential land. So the next map or the next slide shows what's going to take shape to be our preferred growth alternative. As mentioned, primary would be job growth out to Dollars Corner. We think we can accommodate our residential growth targets within our existing boundaries. We are proposing to take approximately 300 acres out of the Meadowglade area because that area doesn't have great infrastructure and a lot of it's already built out, and several of the people live there don't necessarily want to be in the city. There is some land on Tukes Mountain that is where our water tanks are that we include to bring into the city. I guess like a policy direction, I mean, we don't need a vote or anything, but I would be interested if the council, if we do show a need for some more residential, particularly lower density, would the council be open to kind of looking at some land to include some more options for residential development? I know we have to meet all the targets that Ben went through, but I think what I'm thinking is if the market isn't quite there for density, and if the market is there, for single family, should we kind of allow a little bit more for low density residential, if we do need to go out in some areas that have been identified in some of the site specific areas. I don't know if that made sense.
Go ahead, Cherish.
Because the concern is,
Well, I think what you're getting at is there are 2 cities asking to bring in ag land. Are you asking us if we want to bring in ag land, or are you asking us if we
no,
just want to
I
expand? our
haven't
bound-
even don't even think about ag land at this
Okay.
point. This would be existing, maybe rural residential areas kind of around
that
Battleground.
that aren't on this map.
They aren't on this map at this, but they are included in some of the site-specific requests.
Oh, gotcha. And you're
Um,
asking, would we want to bring those in as like R3?
If we could
or-
justify it, we may not be able to justify it, but as Burke does their capacity analysis and says, Battleground could use 50 more acres or 100 more acres, then we would come back to you and say, we think that we can justify this, we need this. Because honestly, from 10 years, we're going to 10-year stretch and we have not expanded our urban growth boundary.
Okay.
We're saying we can accommodate everything within our existing boundary, but,
There's not a
and
lot
I
of
know
fla-
that the building industry hasn't been super active here in Battleground. Not that we've been having meetings on this every month, but it's just kind of a question I've been thinking about.
Okay, Cherish.
So I have a question. What does this map currently represent?
This map represents our preferred growth alternative that we've shared with Clark County of the direction we think we want to go in the next 20 years.
Okay, because where I live, it says mixed use residential to R7, but it was already R7 2014. So,
Yeah, my apologies. There may be some mixed use districts on this map. This was taken right out of our study that we did in 2021. And if you remember, one of the directives out of that study was to get rid of our mixed use districts and go to traditional residential, commercial and industrial. So those I wish I had a current zoning map here, but those mixed use residential have just gone to traditional residential zoning.
okay, I guess I'm just wondering how many other changes have already went into effect on this map.
Yeah, we could, yeah, our current zoning map and current comp plan map kind of show what those changes are. I'd have to compare them side by side.
So Sam, when we look at, the mayor brought it up, that in R3, we're like 2,100 units, right? Of R3. And I talked to Mark about this a couple weeks ago. We've changed our lot sizes of what R3 is. And so like in the neighborhood that I live in, from basically Northwest 25th down to probably what, 7th out here, all of those lots would be R3 under our current
Mhm.
standard, but they're R5. So would it be beneficial for us to change, or can we change zoning that's R5 to match up with what it is currently? So that would be an R3 zoning, and you're gonna have hundreds of homes in there that now free up some of the R3, and you could add R5 and stuff or density, because we're having, the biggest challenge we're having is all the good land is developed, right? And so now we're trying to fit more homes onto smaller lots. So would we be better to do that, or can we do that? Or is it too much work?
I think it's kind of, just to make sure I understand what you're saying, you're right. The R3, you can fit more density in it today than we did when it was originally designed.
Yeah.
Cause yeah, I mean, it just kind of a higher, like, 3 units per acre.
Yeah.
There's
I think the question is, so like my neighborhood too, I think we're R5 or R7, but in effect, it's really an R3. I think what,
At the
Deputy Mayor
current
Bowman.
standard, it would be R3.
so would you
Mhm.
if you called that R3, would it change the calculus? And should you change it to R3, or is it just better off leaving it alone?
Yeah, I would, I mean, I would leave it alone. I'm thinking more about the development community, particularly because, and this is why it was changed, is because Battleground has so many environmental areas.
So you can use the wetlands.
Yep, it's the density transfer that kind of builds in that 20% density bonus. So people see R3, but then they look at the lot sizes and say, well, this doesn't correlate with 3 units per acre. But it's because they're getting more density with those density transfers. And I feel like 80% of our subdivisions have wetlands around them.
And that took me a long time to realize. So don't know if anybody understands that, but essentially if you you average that over the wetlands and green spaces. And so your
Mhm.
lot may not be 3 per acre, but the subdivision is 3 per acre as an
Right.
average.
If you look at the gross acreage of density,
Where in the past it was basically a 13,000 square foot lot for
Right.
an R3 zoning, and yeah, figure it
Right.
out, put the roads in, put all that stuff. It was quite a bit different.
right.
And then the last question I have is that box up above that goes up there to the Lewis River. Now this is before me. I know, if I remember right, though, history was that was supposed to be in our UGA, and they came in and complained, and the county switched it with Meadow Glade, and Meadow Glade came in, they went out. Is that correct?
Yeah, the history predates me a little bit, but from my understanding, I got this from Jeff Lawson. They
his
had
company.
that included in the urban growth boundary. There's actually some kind of infrastructure that was put in out there. I can't remember if it was a water line or a sewer line.
Yeah, we actually serve out there with water, and then there's a dry sewer line in there.
And so, and then at the last minute, the county councilors, I think, pulled that out of the urban growth boundary. And it just has been that way for some time. So as part of our 2021 update, we said this makes sense to reestablish our urban growth boundary out in that area since we already have some infrastructure out there.
So before we get down too far then, so I think what Sam's asking council and is, would you be in favor of maybe more R3 zoning, and you're looking maybe at that north section or to be determined areas? You're looking for a direction just generally on, does council want to move forward with looking at more land for, say, R3 single family housing?
Yeah, and yeah, to kind of even make it more specific, we need to comply with state law. State law says we have to have zoning for all income types. But my question is, well, what if city doesn't build housing, developers build housing? What if that market just isn't happening in Battleground? Then does that penalize housing in general, or should we have kind of a relief valve for if someone is kind of finding they're short in some area, particularly the low density, should we look on the edge of our city to consider some of these site-specific requests?
Council? Does that make sense? Everybody clear?
Yeah, like compensating if we can't meet the demand of the multifamily, then hey, let's try to use some land use somewhere else to get those numbers in other ways. But just
I think it was more low density from the other cities to us, more than multifamily to low density, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So are you more apt to? I mean, is there more land to the east of the city that would be suitable for that than
Getting in the hills.
than like that piece up there?
Yeah.
Like I know, I mean, I don't know people there, but I know that like all those lots down along the river, you're not gonna develop those anymore. Those are all $1 million+ homes sitting down on the river. And then all you have is that was a cluster development, and you have that 35 on the corner.
I think
And
this
then-
is more a generic ask, like is council okay with adding potentially more site-specific requests for R3?
I would be,
So I'm looking,
but you'd have to
Yes.
have it has to be in your
Right.
boundary.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Looks like
Yeah.
council's in favor of adding.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, all those we'd already included in that I've got highlighted, including a portion on Tukes Mountain that Mark's pointed out. There might be a few other parcels. I would just look at squaring off certain sections of our city. I don't think that the DNR lands are feasible because that's getting into the
Yeah.
Well, I
our
would be,
forested areas.
I'd be fine with the DNR lands if we called it open space and put a bike park or some sort of trail there, only to that type of.
Right.
On Tukes.
No, it'd be, there was some north,
Oh,
East
the
section.
stuff that we gave back to them.
there's some parcels, some 20-acre parcels DNR wanted to bring in.
Yeah, DNR, we put it as residential as a placeholder, but there, but I don't think it doesn't make sense to grow east. I mean, it makes sense. That's not the direction. And this goes back to 2021, but as you said, Mayor, if there was a need for, more open space parks land, sure. I think that's something that the Battleground would probably appreciate.
I mean, that would be my preference. I don't know about council, but I'm not, I mean, that's all forested and I don't I don't think, I mean, everything we've heard is we want trails and more trees. I think the last thing we want to do is clear cut that. That's DNR land. I mean, let's throw some trails down there, maybe about mountain bike trail or something. That would be my preference, but I don't know where council is on that. That's out here. Yeah, it's out here. Right there along the,
It's along the rail.
Yeah.
That's the
it
stuff.
does. The rail cuts through some of it. And I think DNR has a trouble just keeping up with it and maintaining it and policing it. So I think they're looking to offload some of that. I would be in favor of that personally.
I think it would behoove us and make sense as well as we grow to the west to, like you said, Sam, to square that off, so to speak. And we have an arm shooting out along 502. And I do know there are a decent amount of farmland out there, and I'm not looking to that, but to the north of 502, there's already established properties. And again, take up some of the R3 to get those numbers down. Makes sense if they're on board with it, to me.
So we could go to the that's helpful, thank you. The last slide. I know the mayor and city manager have kind of been following this, and maybe some of you as well. The city of Ridgefield's been advocating to get some of their ag land into their urban growth boundary. To do that under state law, you have to do what's called a resource land study, and it's kind of a high bar. So historically, Battlegrounds avoided our agricultural lands around our city for that very reason. So even in our Dollars Corner expansion, we left out all the ag land, specifically Krybleski and the Orthomeyer Farm. My question for council is when so currently the county has decided to do a countywide ag study. And I'd like the council to consider if we should include these properties in that study. Not to include in our urban growth boundary at this time, but to consider in future comprehensive plan updates. Because these parcels were not included in the DEIS and the kind of when that was all required last year, I think we're too late in the game to consider
Well,
this.
the thing that, to sum this up, the thing that Ridgefield and the Center are running into is there was no study to bring in ag land. So now they have to quickly do a study. If we don't do a study, these parcels essentially can never come in. Doing a study doesn't say they will come in and be something. However, putting them in a study now would give future councils probably 20 years from now, 10 years from now,
Yeah,
that ability. So that's the
Right.
question on the table, correct?
yeah, I'd kind of like to set up the city for 10 years from now, when we do our next periodic update, to look at these properties. And if there's one or two that the study says, you know, these aren't really feasible for agriculture, they could probably be converted. You know, I'm specifically looking at, you know, the Saddle Club, Krybleski, you know, these properties right on the edge of town that no policy decisions need to be made at this point, but just, hey, if the county's doing the study,
Throw them in.
look,
Council?
have them do the work now rather
Yes.
than the city
Council?
paying.
We're getting up to the time limit, so I'm looking for direction. I'm seeing,
It makes sense to do that. I just want to make sure that it's not going to affect the property taxes of the homeowner. If that, I just want, okay. It'd be more like if they decide to sell, then we can.
it'd have to be rezoned and brought in. Yeah, this is just the ability to do that and
Yeah.
nothing more.
Mhm.
And the Saddle Club is, yeah, they've wanted to come in the city for a while, I think. But not, but to be a Saddle Club, not for houses, but.
Some of them do.
Okay, we're getting up to time. So do we have any more slides or are we getting to the end of it here? Questions? We've not had any of those yet. Anybody else?
On the numbers that we were given was the 7,000, but it seems like that's not our fine tuned in numbers. Those aren't like set in stone, no.
7,000 is, yeah, I should. Sometimes things change, you know, all the way up until when a decision's made, but you're right. The county has said we have to accommodate 7,000 new housing units in the next 20 years. So that's set in stone unless something changes.
Okay, thank you.
It's a lot. Yep. All right. Thank you, council. Thank you, Sam, Kristen, and Ben. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you everyone so much. Have a good rest of your night.
Study sessions adjourned.
We got rid of those crazy plastic things. I don't know why they had that thing there, but I was super done with it. And then we got a different monitor. We're gonna extend this for the court clerks, so there'll be more monitors over here. But I wanted to bring everything together so I didn't have to keep like trying to. Yeah, even though I like moving, but.
Very nice. It looks nice. You're part of us now.
I am part of you. I am not all separate,
Like
right?
in a timeout or something,
I
right?
know, right? Hiding. It's true. Video is live. Video is live.
Welcome. It's May 5th, 2025. It is 7 o'clock, so I'll call this regular meeting of the Battleground City Council to order. Please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Ms. Salili, roll, please.
Mayor McCoy,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Bowman,
Here.
Councilmember Kuipers,
Present.
Councilmember Ferrer,
Present.
Councilmember DeRozier,
Here.
Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Overholzer,
Here.
and the clerk is present. That concludes the roll.
Okay, council, that brings us to agenda approval. Now would be the time if you want to add, subtract, divide, multiply the agenda. This would be the time.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add an executive session at the end of council meeting with no action to follow tonight to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price.
Second.
I have a motion, and a second, and that would be RCW 42.30.110, sub 1, sub B,
Yes.
going off memory. Approximately how long?
20 minutes.
We will get to the time later, but just for everybody's edification. Any questions, concerns, council? Hearing none, I have a motion by Deputy Mayor Bowman, a second by Councilmember DeRochers to approve the agenda with the addition of exec session at the very end of the meeting with no action to follow. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Brings us to summary reports and presentations. Councilmember Overholzer, you're on the clock.
No news to report for EMS. We actually have our meeting coming up next week.
Okay. Any other council member reports that we missed for meetings? Yeah. That will move us along to presentations. So Ms. Lowry has a new employee to introduce.
This is very exciting for me. It's not often we get to do this in finance, introduce new employees. So I'm pleased to introduce David Wallace. He's here to be our GIS specialist, and he comes with a wealth of back history. He has over 30 years experience in government. We always like to take other jurisdictions employees. He's most recently coming from Lower Columbia Community College. Prior to that, he was with the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries, as well as City of Longview and Cowlitz County. So breadth of knowledge that he has. He graduated from Western Washington University with a degree in English, and he came out with honors. So that's pretty fantastic as well. He has a Geographic Information Systems Professional designation, which is pretty spectacular. So he has the specialty that we were looking for. And then the fun stuff, he and his wife, Mary Alice, who is here with him tonight, have been married for over 38 years. They have 4 grown children and 4 granddaughters. And then David, in his spare time, enjoys spending time with his family, as well as has a recording studio and is part of a band. I feel like this is a theme lately with our band folks that we're getting, but he plays guitar, keyboard, as well as a singer. So we're very pleased to have David join us.
Thank you, Megan. I will say one thing. It's Great. I'm grateful to be here, council, to be able to serve the city. And it's a perfect storm with my skills and what the city needs. I'm excited to bring a mapping increase and GIS as a tool that the council can use to make decisions. And it's great staff so far, and they've already taken the ball down the field a bit, and we're going to be able to get to the end zone pretty quick. And I'm excited about that. So I'm grateful to be here.
Happy to have you on board. Please come meet the council. Yeah, GIS seems like it's a pretty isolated part, but I know even the chief is like, yeah, I need some time here. So, yeah, did he already get you? Yeah. He may be short, but he's mighty. He gets these barbed hooks that guy uses. So happy to have you on board. Okay, that brings us, Deputy City Manager. Correct?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'll be talking tonight about the proposed Battleground Skate Park mural. Earlier this year, the city was approached by an artist, Will Sykes, regarding a proposal to paint a mural at the Battleground Skate Park. Will's here with us this evening. If you'll go up here to the podium, he'll make a presentation in just a moment. The purpose of his proposal is multifold, is to beautify the skate park, of course, as well as hopefully deter some vandalism the park experiences on an intermittent basis. And you'll see some of the pictures in the presentation, exactly what we're talking about, as well as inspire the community through art. Staff has been developing the idea of a public art program here in Battleground for some time. We don't have anything to share yet publicly, but we do think there's great potential for that program. We believe that a mural at the skate park would be a good first step in that direction. A good demonstration project, if you will, something that can prime the pump for things to come. Mr. Sykes was invited to present his idea to the PACE board, which he did in February, March, and April of this year. PACE, as you know, is the city's volunteer body. They provide guidance to policymakers and staff on parks and recreation programs. Also in their advisory capacity, making recommendations on the development and operation of parks, playgrounds, and recreational facilities. Staff recognizes, and I'm sure council would agree, we value their input. With that said, at their last meeting on April 9th, the PACE board voted unanimously to recommend the city council direct staff to work with Mr. Sykes to introduce a mural into the skate park. Will give his presentation here in just a moment, talk a little more about his vision and answer specific questions from the city council. Staff's also here to address questions as they come up. And with that, I'll turn it over to Will. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob. And hi, nice to meet you guys. My name is William Sykes. I am an artist and a computer science major from Central Washington University. I approached the PACE board, months ago, just from an email. I was at the skate park myself. I saw recently covered up graffiti and vandalism, and I was like, man, all I want to do is paint, but I think I want to go about it the right way, right? So I emailed them. I'm like, hey guys, I think I can solve your problem. I would love to add some genuine art to the skate park. And now we're here. I am so grateful to be here. Rob, Chris, thank you so much, guys. And so, yeah, without further ado, the Battleground Skate Park mural. So first, the Battleground Skate Park is a recreational asset enjoyed by many residents and visitors, myself included. The skate park also experiences vandalism on a regular basis and graffiti that can serve as a deterrent to the park experience, as well as presents an ongoing maintenance cost to the city of Battleground.
And well, if I could, that picture, if you go back just one slide.
For sure.
Okay, so you can see one more forward.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, you can see there's about 14 different colors of primer there on the skate park. That's the type of vandalism that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's exactly what we're talking about. And it's that picture. I actually took those pictures. That is what I approached the PACE board about. So yeah, we'll go on to the next one. Right here, I included a couple images of skate parks with art. The one on the left is from Covington, which was my local growing up. That piece on the ground has been there for probably 25 years and no one has even touched it. A big reason why I suggested a really well done professional mural is because art commands respect. And I think that's exactly what I can do here. So I can give you guys an amazing piece of art that will command respect from my peers around me at the skate park. The introduction of a mural at the skate park would beautify the skate park, as said, and deter that vandalism and potentially reduce the city's maintenance costs and inspire the community through public art. The thing is I was one of those kids growing up that just wanted to put my mark on the world, right? I think I'm still that kid growing up who just wants to put his mark on the world. But the thing is there's a right and a wrong way to do it. And I think it's just no place for vulgarity. You know, we're trying to make this place beautiful, not decrepit and uninviting, which is not what the skate park is. The concept for a mural was presented to the Battleground Pace Board February, March, and April, and the Pace Board unanimously recommended that the City Council approve the mural at the skate park, April 9th. Let's see. So how we would get it done, the first site would be the skate park dome, which is kind of towards the back of the skate park facing the baseball fields with high quality spray paint artwork with professional application and a protective finish. So the dome, the back of the dome itself is about 37 by 10 feet. And that's what I envisioned for the mural that I've suggested. So I think this next one is there. Here's the mural that I suggested. I drew this myself. That's with pen and marker. And I envision putting it up on the wall with spray paint. I have a couple ways I'm going to go about doing this. This is some of my other artwork that I've done. As you can see, we start off with a sketching process and then just getting to work, color blocking, details, and things like that. This was a legal piece of art that was commissioned by me by an art store. So I've done a handful of these. I have the skills to pay the bills, to back it up and make you guys something beautiful. So trust me on that. But I will give you guys a timeline. So the timeline and execution plan, first off would be surface preparation. I'm going to paint the entire thing black for a clean canvas. That'll really make the art pop. The first couple of days will be sketching and scaling. I'll do that by using a projector and then some chalk, going through, making sure it's all scaled and perfect exactly how we want it. And then we're going to add the base layers, which will take a day, maybe two, and then detailing and refinement, which will take the most time. As you guys can see, you know, we're doing tigers with their bunch of stripes and awesomeness, and then the background is going to be this lightning kind of super powerful aura that I want to give these tigers, right? And that's also going to take some time. It's kind of a freestyle process, but this is just an example. So my tentative timeline would be 7 to 9 days. However, I actually envision it going quicker. And these are just tentative guesses to 1 to 2 days. This is my first time at tackling a project this big. And if I can get things done in a quicker manner, I'll just move on to the next thing, right? I'm just waiting for your guys' approval. And if y'all can see me, I am shaking with excitement. I just cannot wait to get started. And I really hope you guys like what I've presented. So thank you so much for hearing me out.
Councilmember DeRochers?
I'm just wondering, after you finish the bowl, if you're wanting to do more art.
Absolutely.
And okay, so if we really like it, you're willing to come back and paint some more. Okay.
Absolutely.
Good to know. Thank you.
Like when I first approached them, I was 100% prepared to paint the entire skate park.
Good to know.
So our method basically is crawl before you walk, walk before you run. And so this is really, I think, the first mural project I think that the city has commissioned. And so we want to make sure, kind of proof of concept, that we can do it and we can do it well. But yes, you're right, Councilmember DeRochers, if there's opportunities, other canvases, if you will, other places, not just the skate park, but around town. And then when we have those ideas, we firm them up a little more. We like to run those by Pace Board first and then the city council to make sure that we're on the same page. But we think there's great potential here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bowman?
The question I have, number one, thanks for doing this. This is awesome. I think it's a great thing. It's going to be good for the community. For the days that it's going to be, the 7 to 9 days, are we going to put something up around it for you to paint that so that it's not being messed with as you're doing this project, or
Yeah,
what's the plan there?
what we'll do is we'll work with the folks down at the ops yard and to put some, I don't know what the right term is, fencing around, so that way we'll have some space to work.
Yeah.
But also if people want to come up and talk to him while he's doing that, they can, but they're not right on top of his project work area, so to speak.
Perfect. Good.
Question that I have, are we gonna be able to supply him with some potential scaffolding or anything? He said it's about 10 foot tall.
Yeah, I think only a step ladder would be something I would need. And I believe we do have that, right? Yeah.
We'll work with Will to help him get the material that he needs to do the project right.
My only question is, I know the dome, the outside is not skated on. I imagine it's not skated on. So we could put the anti-graffiti coating on that, correct? Because it has a little slickness to it. So I like the proof of concept starting here, because we're going to start on something that's not going to be skated on. I love it. I've been excited about this for a long time. So if I could
Sweet.
draw, I'd be right there with you, but you don't want my help. Super excited about that, but I would like to see if it's where it makes sense for the skating community to put anti-graffiti coating on it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, to speak out of turn, Will, but I think, as I understand it, once you put the coating on, sometimes it can change the skate experience to a certain degree.
But this isn't skated on from.
No, this is not, no.
I mean, actually, it is skated on. I skated on it today, but the thing is it's already so slippery from all the graffiti that's been covered up there already, and that goes for a lot of the park. Like, it's just constant layers of new paint. I don't think it's going to change much, to be honest. And the starting on the back of the dome, we'll be able to see how it comes out. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I would even give more credence to let this gentleman in the community decide whether that works, and if it makes it less safe, then that's fine. But I love the concept, man. I'm excited for you as well. Councilmember DeRochers?
I just had one more question. I'm assuming the park's going to remain open, the rest of the park?
Yeah, it shouldn't affect the other people that are visiting the skate park, yeah.
That would be pretty cool for the skateboarders to watch you painting that. So that's awesome.
yeah.
Look
Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
awesome.
Feedback from the community on what else they'd like to have on there.
Yeah, there's some walls there on the old Anderson Dairy. Go ahead.
We'd like to
Councilmember
do that,
Kuipers?
is get some positive feedback from others. The picture that Will provided of the Covington skate park, I think was pretty telling, because it was a lot of artwork. It was like the second slide that you show, Will.
Mm-hmm.
That shows you what's possible. I mean, and we have I think the second largest skate park in the state, if I have that correctly, ranked number 2. And so there's a lot of space to work out there, right? And so this is just one canvas of many at the skate park.
Awesome. Councilmember Kuipers?
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just have a big thank you. I love the design. I think it really ties the community, obviously, with the high school logo and, Little Tigers Daycare. And it's just such a positive thing. And we sure need a lot more of the positive. So this is great. And thank you to the staff also for pushing this. Excited to see your work.
To your point, Councilmember Kuipers, I would also like to publicly thank the members of the PACE Board. Many of them are here this evening. I'm pretty excited by the involvement and the input they provided to Will. And so honestly, I don't think we could have done this without their assistance. So thank you very much to all of them.
Absolutely. Shout out to the board.
Yeah, I commend you for, you saw a problem and you took action, you reached out and you're like, hey, I can help you. How great would that be if everybody in the community just started doing that, reaching out, how can we make our city better? So thank you for doing that. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
I do have a question. That dome, did you paint that one? Was that part of yours with the birds on it and the dragon on the dome?
Honestly, no, that was just a picture I found.
Okay.
And I just really enjoyed it. I think it pulled everything together, the
Yeah, I
presentation.
love that one. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah. And I was just thinking how you guys, I love the idea of bringing in, the possible future aspects of, bringing in kids, right? Giving them the positive aspects of what you could do to make your mark in your community, and thinking outside the box just for fun, maybe applying like a QR code where these kids could submit pictures of their artwork and we could get some really Joke stuff.
So not to let too much get out too soon, some of those ideas are things that staff has talked about at a very base level.
Okay.
We're doing a great project right now over Kiwanis Park, and the pickleball court has a very large canvas. It's 128 feet wide, 10 feet high. And so staff is already trying to figure out how we can program that and run that through Pasteboard and the city council to get something nice there, because it's one of those things where either you paint it or someone else will paint it for you, right? And so as much as possible, we'd like to be on the front edge of that.
Agreed. Yeah, that's really smart. Thanks. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Troy. I have one more question. Can you let us know when he starts painting so we can, pop in and take a look?
We will, I'm sure we market it, and we'll let everybody know when Will's going to be an artist in residence, I guess you could say, and out there and painting. So,
All
I
right.
look forward to the time lapse photos from our PIO.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be recording the whole thing. It's been my new thing. So, yeah, I can give you guys that video, the whole time lapse of it all. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have an Instagram channel or something, or a page that we can follow that on?
I do. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll provide that to you guys as well.
So with that, I'd like to direct staff to work with the artist on the mural at the Battleground Skate Park.
Anybody have any issues with this?
No.
I would hope not. All right, sir. The canvas is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
Pasteboard.
Okay, that brings us to citizens communication portion of the evening. I do have a couple of people signed up for the speed limit changes. You're welcome to talk now or at that public hearing. So I'll now open this, you can, or both. I'll now open the meeting for citizens communications. You're limited to 3 minutes. Please, this is an opportunity to hear from members of the public, a limited public forum. And this is something I'm going to highlight more so now. Please refrain from derogatory remarks, personal attacks, and campaign speeches. It's not that we don't want to hear you, it's that using public resources for campaign speeches will get you in trouble. So that's for your benefit, not ours. City council desires to hear public comment. City's business must proceed in an orderly, timely manner, so please be respectful. Please direct your comments to the mayor. Council may not be able to respond to individual comments. The city managers place some business cards at the podium. That's also where, if you have anything to hand out to the council, please, to our lovely city clerk there. So thank you for participating. I will call everybody who signed up. If you want to wait till the hearing, that's fine. If you want to speak at both times, that's fine. So first up, we have Jessica Cole.
I'll just speak at one right now. Good evening, council members. I'm Jessica Cole. I'm here tonight to speak about the importance of proclamations and the need for a clear, consistent, and equitable process. Battleground has long used proclamations to honor groups and causes that reflect our community's values and diversity. Since 2018, proclamations have recognized Read Across America, Childhood Cancer Awareness, Red Ribbon Week, the Cowlitz Indian Tribe, slavery and human trafficking prevention, African American history, women's history, and building safety. These statements matter. They affirm shared values and show support for residents, including children, youth, protected classes, and even city employees. They help foster belonging, safety, and civic pride. Last year, a proclamation was labeled controversial by a minority of the council, though the policy refers to potentially controversial proclamations. That distinction matters. The council had never used this clause before, even though many past proclamations could have been seen as potentially controversial. That inconsistency has caused confusion and concerns. Since then, no proclamations have been issued, though there have been requests. Now there's talk of eliminating them altogether. But ending proclamations isn't leadership, it's avoidance. Proclamations have been a meaningful way to recognize the people, causes, and events that shape our city. One thing I've learned from board service is that good governance doesn't tie the hands of future leaders. If this council opts not to issue proclamations, that's your choice. But removing the option entirely creates an unnecessary barrier. Governance documents should guide long-term decision-making, not react to short-term discomfort or pressure. The real issue isn't that proclamations exist, it's that the process hasn't been applied fairly. When some are approved easily and others, especially involving protected classes, face added scrutiny, it raises serious equity and legal concerns. Please recommit to a proclamation process that is clear, fair, and consistent. Let's strengthen this tradition and not abandon it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And then I have Reggie Howell signed up for traffic speed limits. Should I talk now or at the, there we go. Whenever you, yeah,
Thank you.
your prerogative.
Council members. I live in the Whistler Pines neighborhood, and we have the Whistler Pines Park. We have a 25-mile-per-hour zone in our subdivision, and I wish you guys would consider lowering that to 15. We have kids riding bikes, we have kids playing with balls, and we have families walking along the road. And we have a lot of people come to that park. I wish the park wasn't there, but that ain't my decision. But I wish you guys would consider changing the speed limit within our subdivision to 15 miles per hour, because people, and I have cameras all the way around my house, so I record everything. They actually do more than 25. The second thing I would like to present is, I know you guys probably don't have the power to change the speed limit down at Dallas Corner from 35 to 50. But I wish you guys would make a recommendation to the Washington State Department of Transportation. I have to drive that road every morning to go to work. And I incur so much road rage because my vehicle is GPS tracked by my company. So they keep a deadly eye on speed. And I incur so much road rage because I have to slow down to 35. And I don't see why it's 35 there in the first place. It's nothing there. I mean, it's no reason to have 35 miles per hour there. And the last thing is, you guys decide to change the speed limit on the west side of the 502 in front of Albertsons to 40 miles, from 40 to 30. I would like and ask that you have a police presence to enforce it. Because again, I drive that road every morning and I get tailgated, I get flipped off, I get harassed for driving the speed limit. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anybody online or anybody else in the room that would like to take part in citizen communication?
No one online, Mr. Mayor.
And no brave souls in the audience. Okay, that concludes the citizens communications portion of the meeting. We'll move on to consent agenda. There are 5 items on the consent agenda. Councilors, anything you wish to pull for further discussion, now would be the time. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda in its entirety as presented.
Second. Second.
Motion by Councilmember First, second by Councilmember Kuipers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, now we come to public hearings portion. So we'll turn it over to Mr. Hersig. Tee us up.
Good evening, council. Before we do the public hearing, we have a couple employees from WashDOT. Devin Reck and Michael Southwick are here. So they'd like to talk a little bit about the speed limit on 502. I'm going to pull up a diagram so that we can have something to look at as we talk.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? All right. So the proposal came in. I think you guys had a council meeting, and we've had kind of a couple of meetings, or one meeting in between, just to kind of discuss the proposal and then kind of some feedback we got from council and the city. on the very top here, just want to kind of go over kind of what we have now, what we're proposing, and then maybe kind of a future goal for the roadway. So on the top, and I was informed that we may have some folks that are colorblind, so you can see there's a dot in between transitions if you can't see colors. But on the very top, there's a yellow line. Currently, that's 40 miles per hour, and that goes just past the storage unit shed there. Just past that, it's 50 miles an hour, and that goes down to 190 or down to 92nd, which is I think the end of your guys' city limits. What we proposed, and you can see in the middle one, we did some studies, we looked at crash data, and we came up with we came up with 30 miles per hour just in front of a Bank of America. After we talked with all of you guys and kind of went through and got some feedback that maybe we wanted to push it out further, we looked at it. We ended up pushing it out another 800 feet or so. And the reason being is just the context of the roadway, right? So you have at Bank of America, it's got splitter islands with planter strips and trees, and you got sidewalk, and you got all those bike lanes. And we noticed like, well, why aren't we pushing it out further? Actually, if you go a little further, just in front of, just before 92nd, you have the same scenario. And so that was our reasoning behind that. Like, we have the context there. Let's go ahead and push it out to that point. The 40 mile per hour is still in the current place it is today. And so what we call that a transition. So when you're going from 50 to 30, it's a pretty big speed differential, and you kind of want to jump people down so that they have some warning they're coming to a slower area. The third part is kind of, that's the after the improvements, right? So you can see on the bottom, you have the roundabout that is supposed to be going in. You have the high school or the virtual high school that's going to be going in potentially. And then you have the red and yellow, which is the 30 and 40 mix, right? And so what we're saying there is we don't know what that speed is going to be right off the bat. We might have to jump to 40, and then eventually, if we have enough improvement, if we put in splitter islands, if we do enough stuff to calm traffic, then we can get to 30, right? And so that's where it depends. It's kind of like it depends on what improvements we make, and then in what order they're made in.
Yeah, it really comes down to the context. So Devin Rec, I live here in town.
You can have a mic
Sorry.
for the YouTube folks.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was going to comment on, I grew up as a skater. I loved it. Loved the presentation. I wish I had a skate park growing up. I walk at Quianis Park or right around there, and you see the little clips on the little concrete there. And I told my wife, I said, that's where they're trying to keep skaters off of that stuff, so I get it. It's pretty cool to see that. But yeah, so what we're trying to do is just kind of laying out there, as Mike was talking, it was just kind of a phased approach, and just depends on the roadway context that's out there. And there's a progressive way. And I know they're talking about kind of a ordinance, and we actually support that, and to be able to that lays a landmark, a goal, if you will. Anytime we have to change the speed limit, we have to kind of come back, and we don't want to come back. And we just kind of chip away at this, work with the staff, and kind of work at this as the context of that road changes. We fully support getting it slower. Definitely appreciate the testimony. That's some of the things we're trying to avoid, is when you get those real speed differentials going on, and trying to kind of get people, calm it down. What are people actually doing? We do that with studies. We do that with data. We do it with consultation, as we did with Mark, and kind of work through it. We actually went back and reevaluated this, as Mike said. And so we kind of were able to push a little bit further. And we're still kind of holding that 40, as Mike talked about. But then we just kind of shortened up that transition space in there. And then we'll go out there, and if everyone's amenable to that, we'll do that. And then we'll study it and look at it again. And hopefully these improvements come along to kind of change that context of the road. So the context is really important, because it puts people on the same page, so they understand what the expectations are, whether you're a walker, a biker, traveling through their trucks, etc. And so if you're not on the same page, if they feel like it should be quicker, they're going to go quicker. And so the expectations are different. So it just levels the playing field, and that's what our goal is. So make it safe.
I'm gonna add a couple more things. So the section that we're leaving 50 is the section that is, it's got 12-foot wide lanes. It has no sidewalk at this point. I think we're moving towards getting sidewalk. You got barrier versus the curbing with the planter strips and the visual cues that kind of make you want to slow down, because people a lot of times are going to drive the speed they feel comfortable, right? You're going to have your outliers. You're going to have people that are going to drive way over or way under, small percentages. But that's really why we're kind of, I guess, hitting on those pieces. It's not that we want to say no. It's more that like, okay, the 30, we want to get there too. It's just how do we get there and how do we work with Mark to get to that point? And I think it's a phased approach. I think it's an iterative process to get there. And then I feel like I had one more thing in my head. Hold on one second here. I think that's it for me right now. So.
Well, I know in our discussions, WSDOT was talking about Dollar's Corner as well. And I believe to Mr. Howell's point, no, we don't have any control over that, but I believe they were taking a holistic approach to all of 502, and I believe they were considering that as well. And I would just say, you know, if you want to make somebody mad in this town, speed. If you want to make them really mad, drive the speed limit. So I'm excited to hear what council has to say about this, and council, now be time to queue in for questions. I believe is at the end of your presentation. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yes. Yep. We're good.
Councilmember DeRochers.
I guess I need a better understanding. Are you saying this draft is something we're going to do, or only when we have those future upgrades?
Okay. So the second strip map, that second one, that is what we are planning on doing. So moving this, yeah, no change. That's what I was gonna say, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're
no
not-
changes to the roadway at all. That's what we plan on doing.
Okay, so it'd be really awesome if this had the overlay of all the accidents that we've had along there, particularly there where it goes up to 40. There's people that cross all the way to turn left to get onto Main Street out of that neighborhood. That's
29th, you mean?
yeah, 29th Avenue. So they come out of there and you have to go across all 2 lanes and a median or center planter strip. And that seems to be a big problem area for us. And that's why we were hoping that you would extend the 30 miles per hour further west instead of by the bank where there's no in and out traffic there. There's like one driveway at the west side of the Albertsons parking lot, but nothing really else. This is a huge problem for us. And there's a lot of people in that neighborhood that come in and out of there. So I think we were hoping, without having to do these improvements, that for good measure, we could lower that speed limit in that area to try to decrease potential accidents. I know I pulled out of there the other day and I kept having to look and look and look, and I'm like, holy freaking cow, where are these people coming from? So I had to wait for this traffic, 2 lanes, and then those lanes. It took a while, and it was actually really scary to pull out of there without an actual traffic light or anything. So I don't know. I think the lower speed would definitely help prevent accidents. So I hope that you will reconsider that. Thank you.
Mayor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for coming out tonight for your presentation, and also thanks for, I know I sat in with you guys a week or so ago to kind of go over this. Today I went to Salmon Creek, and it was about 8 o'clock this morning. So maybe just a little bit behind you, Reggie, but they had it down to 1 lane. And I brought this up before. The amount of gravel trucks coming through our city right now is absolutely insane. And the price of gravel must be very cheap, or I don't know why, but I was coming along right at that section, and it's necking down right past 29th there, right by those mini storages where it's going down to 1 lane. And everyone's doing like 45, 50 mile an hour. And this gravel truck has got his flashers on trying to get over, and he can't slow down because he can't slow down and get in with traffic. And he's running up against, you know, the marker to get over. And I saw that he was blinking, and I held up and let him in. But But the improvements that we're making there, and I guess my question is why, what is the speed for construction zone in the state of Washington?
Well, it's normal speed unless there's something that restricts. So if we're at 60 miles an hour on the interstate, it's going to be 60 unless we shift traffic or we do something that narrows lanes or something like that.
So where this is narrowing a lane, what should the speed limit be?
Well, I don't know that I can answer that without knowing the exact details. I mean, I'd be happy to kind of, if you give me the exact scenario, we can look at it and see, but I wouldn't be able to answer that just based off of.
So when they take one lane out, of the road on 502 heading westbound from 20, well, it's not 29th, whatever the edge of town there is, all the way to 92nd, when they're taking a lane out to work on the north side of 502. They were putting in a water line, they're working on different entrances and stuff in there. And so almost every day they're shutting that down to one lane. So you got one 12-foot lane and a Jersey barrier and construction going on over here. So is that a 50-mile-an-hour zone?
Again, I'd have to look at it specifically to see what was going on because I don't know, and I don't know who was out there doing the work. But I would say, I mean, does the city of Battleground, do you guys typically lower speed than speed zones and work zones every time? I think it depends on the situation. Really, is what I'm trying to say.
Because I mean, I could be wrong. I drive about 50,000 miles a year all over this state.
Yeah.
I've never went through any zone in this state of Washington that construction, and it has construction signs or merge signs, that you could do the same speed limit that you were doing. I haven't been through one. There may be, but I have not been through one. When I go to Seattle and go through the fort, there's nothing but concrete walls there, but they slow you down to go through those areas. And we're taking 40 mile an hour going to 50 and cramming it into one lane and expecting everybody to, you know, figure that out. And they're figuring it out. But like I said, there's people that are upset about it. You've got the people out there working construction, you know, 80,000 pound truck, you know, some of those can be licensed to 110. That takes a lot of time to slow one of those down. And so, I looked at it as we're building this out, this is where our development's going right now. This is where, you know, the roundabout's going to be going in. We got development going out there. We're already slowing them down to go through construction as it is right now. Why would, and maybe it makes sense, maybe to me it doesn't, but maybe it does make sense to some people that we're going to slow you down to do all the construction. We're going to speed you up to slow you down again. When we figure out, you know, what this is going to be. That's going to be I would assume with the high school going there, that's going to be a school zone. Would that not, Mark? If Firm Foundation goes in there, that would be a school zone?
It likely wouldn't be one that gets slowed down. So the requirement to actually do the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit is to have a crosswalk there within that school zone. And I don't believe that they'll have one. So it would not be a 20-mile-per-hour zone. Unless that changes.
So when you're going, and maybe I'm wrong, but when you're going down by Prairie High School, before they just put that crosswalk in, that wasn't a school zone?
No, you didn't have any change of speed there. Firm Foundation's another good example on Eaton. There's no change of speed there because they don't have a crosswalk.
Okay, so we don't, so we may not slow it down then for a school zone, which I'm fine with. But I just don't see why we're not taking it all the way out, you know, and slowing this stuff down. I get there's people upset. I mean, I sat behind people stopping for a school bus on the other side of the divider today. So, you know, people are going to be upset whether we lower this or we leave it where it is. Someone's going to be upset, right? But you know, the chief will tell you that speed, and the state of Washington will tell you, every state patrolman I know will tell you that speed kills. The more the faster you go, the less chance you have of non-injury accident. And the more cars we put into that area and the more people we have coming out and the construction that's going on. And we had a death right there earlier this year.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that was speed related, but that's what we look at when we're looking at these things. So thank you.
And I was just gonna say, 100%, I'm with you that we want to bring the speed down. I just think there's things that need to happen. Otherwise, we're making another political decision, and then we potentially are at Dollar's Corner again. And we're not actually, because the goal is, right, we want to bring speeds down. I think that's everybody's goal here. And so if you just put a sign up, it doesn't do it. And so we're saying we're willing to do the work. We just need to have a gradual step to get there.
And to that point, I'd like to, can we have the public hearing first? So to that point, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. First, before we start that, was there any written testimony, Liz?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, nothing was read in the record. So for that, go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:45 PM for public testimony. Again, you're limited to 3 minutes to provide comment on ordinance 2025-03, amending Battleground Municipal Code, Title II Administration Personnel, Chapter 2.86 Salary Commission, Section 2.86.030 Duty, Sections 2.86-040 Open Meetings. All comments should be directed to the city mayor. So is there anybody on Zoom who would like to provide testimony?
No, Mr. Mayor.
If not, that is your cue. Whoever was in the audience that wanted to speak on this ordinance and speed, please step up to the podium, state your name for the record, please, and your 3 minutes is yours.
Hello, City Council. My name's Jessica Cole. I just want to say that I believe it was last meeting, Councilor Farrer, I never pronounced your name right, you know who I'm talking about, said that it would be a great idea. It'd be nice if we could extend the 30 to past 29th Street. And I do agree with that at minimum. It'd be nice if it could go to the city limits, but I'm fine as long as it goes past 29th. I do not exit that street or that parking lot. The only way I will leave Albertsons is to go on the other side of the school coming in, the preschool, which is pretty scary already, you know? And I personally, I do go on 4th Plain. I cross out of a parking lot right at Andreessen and 4th Plain, and that's safer to me than this street, which is insane. So I would love if this would go down to 30 now. And if it's 40, and actually I'll be super honest, I'm really conscious about my speed, and I never got a ticket and I don't want one. But when I do come back into town, well, when I leave town, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, everyone's flying up on me. I better speed up, you know, and my transition at this intersection happens to be delayed. Not most places. And then when I come back into town, it just seems so fast, that 40. And it would be nice if it went from 50 to that little 40 for a little bit so I could get down to 30. I will be a problem driver, not intentionally. It's just me in that road. I'm going to avoid it from now on. So if you could do 30 at least past 29th, if not all the way, that would be helpful. I'm a real life example. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, my name is Reggie Howell, the Western Pines subdivision. Could you ask the ODOT, the Department of Transportation guys that's here, are they considering to changing at 72nd, Northeast 72nd and WA 502, that 35 per hour zone? It's 35 just like a quarter of a mile. And that's where you really get the mean people, I like to call them. There's no state troopers. I mean, you might see one state trooper once every couple months, and then people act like they got decent sense. But you get some really mean people. And like I said, I have to slow down. I have no choice. So if I get a red light, you really get the mean-spirited people then. So I would like to see that continue on to 50 miles per hour through there. You get a lot of tailgating within the city. People driving these Dodge trucks, Ford trucks. It's always a truck that's tailgating, and they get really spirited. And I have talked to people that tailgated me on the 503 all the way to the Chevron, and that's where they go in the mornings. So I've spoken to them, and what they say is, "You're in my way," and I'm like, "Dude, it's another lane. Just get over." You know, I said, and why is it so important to go so fast? I said, you're going to get there, but you want to get there alive. And that's what our company preaches. And that's why we have a GPS on our trucks, because they want to know where you're at and they want to know how fast you're going. And they're going to be installing cameras now also, so they can see where you are and what you're doing and what people are doing around you. So I would just ask that if the police department could, station some of their officers along the 502 in the mornings, that'd be great. And like the deputy mayor said, that arrow board in the right lane, yeah, you have to pay attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Seeing no further members of the public wishing to speak, I'll now close the public hearing at 7:50 PM. Madam Clerk, if we could get the ordinance title, please.
Ordinance number 2025-04, an ordinance amending Battleground Municipal Code Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 10.08, Miscellaneous Traffic Regulations, Section 10.08.030, Speed Limit on State Highway 502, and Section 10.08.040, Speed Limit on State Highway 503.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Farrar, you had buzzed in, so let you go first up. Did you still have a question?
Well, I know it's a public hearing, but I thought we
Pub-
would have had to make a motion now.
Public hearing's closed. We don't need a motion. It's just a public hearing. We'll take action at the next meeting. So this is a time to hear from the public. But if you had a question for the gentleman there,
Oh, okay. So
otherwise, you can,
yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So, with WASDOT, this is your recommendation in the middle. There's been discussion on this council that we have the option here on council to reduce those speeds to what we're more comfortable with. However, you would have to approve it. Is this correct?
Yeah. So the ordinance you guys can pass the ordinance at 30. I think what we're saying is we're comfortable moving that 30 to a certain point. And just to clarify a little bit, we moved it from the Bank of America because it was there originally. And we've moved it to 229. But yeah, so you guys can do that. So we don't have, the goal is to get there, right?
Oh, trust me, you don't have to sell it to me. I actually am probably the one council member that agrees with what you've laid out here, other than the change doing for 29th. I'm very appreciative that you guys went and reanalyzed this and noticed we have a lot of fatalities and accidents in our intersection. So I'm very thankful to be, that you guys have moved it and you're willing to work with us. And then I just wanted to verify though that, because we will be making a motion on whether we want to approve this ordinance, which if I remember correctly, the ordinance is they want to make it 30 miles per hour all the way to 92nd. Whereas I'm with you, I feel like we should be, until the environment changes, such as the roundabout and also bringing in more residential, that will automatically change the behavior of our drivers. So you don't have to sell it to me. So I just wanted to verify that I'm having accurate information, that we can pass the ordinance, but you're saying we don't need your
I
approval.
can help. So I think what WASDOT is comfortable with us passing the ordinance, and then as traffic and development occurs, they can go ahead and make these changes without bringing it back to us again. So I think it satisfies both requirements. That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So it's like approving, phase one is approving this middle one. And then once all those,
No, we'd be approving the bottom one, but they wouldn't be moving to that until the
Until-
environment.
exactly, it changes. Yeah, okay. We're saying the same thing, just wording it differently.
I'm good at that.
Okay.
Councilmember DeRochers.
I just had a clarifying question. When you just referenced Northwest 29th,
Yes.
are you talking about in the drawing 3 or are you talking about present day?
So drawing 2, what we're going to be doing as soon as we get approval and then we get state traffic engineers approval, we will be moving it to 29th, not past 29th, because it does change quite a bit. There is no splitter islands, there is no trees, there is no sidewalk, all that stuff. So just on the east side of 29th.
So I get that there's not the infrastructure there, but you have cars crossing 40, each lane's 40 miles per hour, and they're all pulling out across and going across. I don't understand that reasoning. I guess I'm obviously not an engineer, but
So the reasoning from our standpoint is if you're not doing the things to change the feel of the roadway, we won't get compliance, right? And so we could change it to 20, but they wouldn't go that speed, right? And so we're just saying with doing nothing, that's where we feel comfortable moving it to based on our speed studies and based on engineering judgment. We're happy to kind of have some in-between progressive, if we're really wanting to push that there, we would just need to talk about what that looks like. And I don't know until we really dive into it, but
Proposal in the middle is just no change to the roadway. It's just the change in the signs to get to where you want to go. There has to be other things that have to be considered.
so have you guys pulled out of Northwest 29th across Main Street to go eastbound? Have you personally done it? You have?
he has.
I live here.
And you still support the 30 before that?
I do, because it's, again, you got to have the same expectations of the roadway. And if if everyone's not on the same page, you're going to get all these speed differentials and people are expecting it to be slower. That's what the sign says. People are like, I can see the concrete barrier. I'm going to start accelerating. You really got to move the whole group, the whole roadway together in concert with the signage and everything else. Otherwise, you're just going to create a little bit more of a mess. And that's really kind of the point you see at Dollar's Corner. It's not the same expectations.
I guess this is just dead traffic pulling out with, 40 each way. I don't know. When I pulled out of there the other day, it felt very unsafe. I had to really get up and go just to get across Main Street, and it was scary. And people have to do that every single day that live in that neighborhood. And again, that's why we end up with accidents there all the time. But I don't know. I don't get why I'm still want it to go past that I get that you can't change behavior,
And I think that's the big thing is people aren't going to go that speed. We got to do some things to enforce that and kind of create that environment. So if that's, we're willing to keep talking with Mark and figuring out what that is. If there's some kind of in-between step to get to 29th, we're not saying no, we need to talk about it and figure what that might be.
It might take a city putting some money into the road.
Yeah,
to-
little ADA ramp on the west side of 29.
Or a crosswalk and open a school.
I just have one quick question. I think you saw me
So-
chime in, Mayor.
Yeah, let's go through, I want to go through everybody once and then we'll come back a second time. So real quick, Mark, 90-second timing, do we have any idea when that roundabout could potentially be going in?
The last I talked to the developer, they're looking summertime.
This summer?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
They're still, they don't have approved plans yet, but that's their goal.
This could be a pretty quick timeline is what I'm hearing. Okay, good. So I would be interested, I think council would be interested in hearing on what are potential road improvements that we could to facilitate the engineers, because it's a speed differential, right? It's somebody who expects the road to be 50, and if we put the road at 25, it's that speed differential that could cause more issues than we currently have. So we were balancing two things here. So I hear you guys, and I don't disagree. So for the gentleman's benefit down there, I have Mr. Howell. Dollar's Corner, talk to me.
We can look at it. It's something we can look into and it would be some community engagement. So it's not an instantaneous thing. We can't just come to the city and there's no city there. So we'll have to get some community engagement together, do some studies and, but yeah, we're willing to look at it.
So is that something I could, like, maybe I could reach out, county council, have them reach out to you and instigate that?
Yeah.
Or are you willing to do that?
We can just put that.
I think that'd be great because we get that a lot. We get that constantly and I don't get it either. And I think his story about if your GPS is telling you to go 35, man, I pity the person that has to drive 35 through there, man. You're number one to a lot of people. So yeah, that's great. And then my last question, 503 study. Because this ordinance has two parts, 502 and 503. Are you now going to look at 503 eventually? Is that on the radar? I appreciate all the work you guys are doing. I appreciate you coming out here. We've had more interfacing and you guys have been great to get back to. So I really appreciate that. And so I hesitate to ask for more, but we want more.
We can come. So we can come back. We were prepared to come talk about 502. You know, I know there's work going on. There's talk about various roundabouts, et cetera, and all that. And so, yeah, we just come back and
I believe there's another
work with
roundabout
Mark.
going in on Storff Rasmussen pretty soon.
Yeah, Rasmussen has a pretty similar schedule to,
So this summer as well.
Yeah, provided they need a wetland permit and a couple of things, but they're hoping for kind of the same schedule.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you for that. So let's go through whoever, who hasn't asked a question in the first round. Councilmember Olster, no, you're not good. Okay, you're good. Okay, so Deputy Mayor Bowman, second time through.
Thank you. So do we need to change the ordinance then because we say 503 in the ordinance? Or we just leave it at 50 mile an hour?
No, we have it at
I don't think for us it matters.
We have it at 40.
We got it at 40. Yeah.
I think what they're saying is we leave it aspirational and as the road changes, they will make the changes to accommodate that.
Correct. It essentially saves us a step because we're shooting for what we want. And then ultimately the Secretary of Transportation has the say so. So as these things happen, they can go straight to doing the studies and making the recommendation to the secretary. They don't have to come back here and go through the, multiple council meetings, the ordinance, the public hearing. We've already set that up. So they're good with what we have, the 30 and the 40.
I would just point to, Ridgefield, when we owned and operated Ridgefield 501 Pioneer, similar thing we did there. We had a kind of a goal speed and then we built the infrastructure around it as development came.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Ferrer? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Bowman.
So the question, I guess the question I have is it the Jersey barriers? Because when people get to the Jersey barriers, whether you're coming up, you can see it from Brush Prairie, Caples Road this way. That's when the race starts.
It's a big part of it.
And you've got Jersey barriers, you've got, maybe people feel more comfortable with that Jersey barrier there doing 80 mile an hour. Maybe they feel that like I can do 80 mile an hour, that cop can't come around. And so I can go ahead and unless he's sitting on my side, they're not going to do anything. But that I'm wondering if that is part of it and should we remove Jersey barriers in the city? Because I know at one point in time that was an issue with 502 that we did not allow Jersey barriers inside the city and the state of Washington decided you're going to have Jersey barriers in your city. And that has turned into the racetracks that we have that are 502, 503.
I would say, yeah, that's the context we're talking about, right? So, 503 down through the big hoop. There was a conversation with speeds are going to go up, but we felt at that point it was worth the speeds going up to reduce crashes. And so it's a trade-off and it depends on what you're trying to achieve. I think in this situation, we're trying to achieve lower speeds. You guys are probably getting sidewalks eventually as stuff develops, bike lanes, all that. You want lower speeds because you don't want pedestrians and people exposed to the higher speeds. So I would say in this situation, yeah, I think the barrier is part of the problem in this scenario.
Because we've got sidewalks on both sides all the way to Scott.
Yeah, so if you remember when we did the transportation plan, probably 3 or 4 years ago, but we added a cross section for 503 that has the kind of boulevard look that we have on 502. So ultimately that would be the goal, is to put those planted medians in put some plantings on either side of it, and that gives you the feel that ultimately we can get to 40 with.
We can't water.
Shane hates trees is what I learned today. Councilmember Farrar?
Well, that leaves me to a question that, thank you for bringing up the 503. So I was going to ask about that. Can we look into 503 and studying that to reduce it down to 40? Because you had mentioned that when the high school comes in, that because there's not a crosswalk, it won't be reduced. But if we have crosswalks such as Scott and Eaton, or crosswalks that cross over the highway, could that give meet a requirement to reduce those speeds naturally from a 50 to a 40 within those areas?
It sounds like maybe we need to kind of look at both of those corridors through Battleground together and kind of, if you guys have a vision of what you want, we can work through with Mark and come up with plans, ideas, those kinds of things. But yeah, we're open to looking at it.
Because I know I personally would like to see 40 going from maybe Eaton, because there's a school there. They got apartments going up on Scotton, movies, kids crossing, and then all the way up to Onsdorf, which brings me to my next question. We looked at the timeline for Rasmussen coming in with the roundabout this summer. Any updates on Onsdorf's roundabout?
Onsdorf is farther out, so right now we only have design funding, so that we just selected a consultant to do. So that one, now having federal funding, it has to go through all of that process that we love. So it's several years down the road.
Yeah, okay. And then my last question, I believe, was the signage for the speed. Since the speed you have it here going from 30 to 40 at 29th, being the east side, where would you put the posting for that speed? Could we get it to be right on the east side of 29th? So even though people are seeing it coming up, technically it might mess with the
So the
psychology there.
the posted speed of 30, if we're talking about eastbound or westbound, or
Let's
it's
go
not even the same, I guess.
westbound, go
So
westbound.
if we're going westbound, the speed will drop when the curbing and the trees go away, which is
Okay, and I get that. I
on
totally
the
understand.
on the east side.
So-
The warning to let you know will come prior to that. So
Oh,
we usually have a sign that lets you know we're dropping speed, and then we drop speed.
so if you have the speed before that, people could essentially start speeding up before they even get to 29th then.
Hypothetically, they could, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then
If you figure out how to control human behavior.
well, that's
So
to think about, can we put the sign, I know it's a warning, so you guys, that's probably your rule, that's your policy, you have to
Well-
put it before, you can't put it like where I'm suggesting right there on 29. So,
Well, yeah, you typically put it where you have the context to have speed compliance. But again,
you'd be
we're not
pretty
saying there's not
worried.
anything we can't do in between.
Yeah.
I haven't had the conversation with Mark, but maybe there's other things we can do to get there. We're just not there if we don't do anything. We just say we're gonna do nothing and change signs, that we won't get there.
Signs don't change behavior. All right, so any other questions? Okay, so this will come back to us as an ordinance next meeting, correct? Two meetings? Okay, so, all right, so thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the work. It's obviously something very emotional. We've lost some citizens out there, so I appreciate you taking the slings and arrows, and the work that went into this. I know in the past, we haven't got a great response from WSDOT, but I have not had that experience in the last year and a half. So I appreciate that immensely. And please, I'll be sure to let Carly know that as well. So thank you for taking the time out of an evening to do this for us. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
All right, Mr. Hersick, you're up next on the resolution. I think we're still talking about speeds.
We are, give me 1 second to change my maps.
just remind council, if this is something you're going to ask a lot of questions about, once through, everybody gets a chance, twice through. So write down your questions.
Okay, we're gonna talk about city speed limits. Our process is a little different. So quite a while ago, we took the speed limits out of the ordinance and put it in a resolution, which makes it a lot easier for us to adjust. So I have in front of you Resolution 2504. I updated quite a bit of it. It didn't really flow the way I liked it. So you'll see several changes in there. They're only really what I'm proposing is the changes we've talked about. I made some corrections on like some school speed limits and things like that. So you'll see in there where that looks different, but it's really just to correct things. So I'm not proposing any of the changes there. To what we are proposing to change. So I have a map in front of you for the north side. Like we discussed previously, several speed limits go down to 35. They include Northeast Grace, Northeast 249th, 25th Street. And so everything kind of on the north side of town will be 35. 92nd remains at 50. As soon as the development happens there, that speed limit will go down. And with the new pump station going in, that will be sooner than later. And then out on East Main, where we don't have any development, that will be 40. Using the mouse that works. On the south side, again, several changes to 35 miles per hour, including Southeast Grace, Eaton. Then several speed limits stay the same, such as Parkway and 20th. And then Eaton on the east side goes from 50 down to 40 to Grace Avenue. That essentially, again, as more development happens, that will likely go down to 35, but we're recommending 40 right at this particular time. And then 152nd down by the Cedars will stay at the 40 that it is now. So that's kind of what we talked about, what I'm proposing in the resolution you see in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council? Councilmember DeRochers.
Sorry, did you say by Cedars it's gonna be 40?
The blue line.
The 152nd
Okay.
down on
Sorry,
the kind
so
of bottom
can I-
right.
Okay, so not Grace by Cedars. And
No,
that's
Grace
gonna
by
be-
Cedars will be 35.
Okay, thank you.
Did it? All right, Deputy Mayor Bowman?
So once again, I was gone when we had this discussion, but I'm just gonna put this out there. So we got 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in town. We got 25. We got 30. We got 35. We got 40 and 55. So those are all of our speed limits in town. This is the most. It's amazing to me that we want to have 6 different speed limits in this city, and to me it's I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but to me, this is why we have speeding problems in this city, because nobody knows what the speed limit is. And so they just go whatever they want. And if, you know, we had engineers sitting here telling us, if it looks like you can go faster, you'll go faster. And so, I mean, I've never been to a city that has this many speed limits through it. And it was to simplify things. You know, we still have 35 on Onsdorf, but you got 25 on Onsdorf west of Parkway or east of Parkway. You got a school zone 2 times a day on Onsdorf. I mean, 25-mile-an-hour through a school zone, you're probably not going to get a ticket. 35-mile-an-hour through a school zone, you're going to get a ticket. That's the stuff that, I mean, instead of looking like how quickly can we get through town, and I think that's the problem, is we want to get through as fast as we can. We should be thinking about like what's the easiest thing to do, what's easiest for our people, When you roll into this city, you know that the speed limit is 25 mile an hour minus the state highways. When you go, then a school zone's 20 and that should be it. I mean, but I don't like any of it. I really don't, because we didn't change anything. We just moved some stuff around. And there's some people, I do like the fact that North Grace is not 50 mile an hour anymore. I don't think we should have that through our city. And I like that South Grace is not 50 mile an hour anymore. But I think that should just be standard. When you annex into the city, here's your speed limit, like we did out on 92nd. When we see the police car that was sitting out on 92nd, out on 239th, 600, was that right? 636 times those lights kicked on at 10 mile an hour over the speed limit. I mean, nobody cares because you don't know what it is. You don't know where it changes. You don't know what it is. So I don't like any of this personally. I think all we did was change a few little things and didn't really cure the problem. Thank you.
Councilmember Davis?
Thank you. We did talk a lot about this at a prior meeting and we went back and forth about our reasoning. And I like what they've done and I understand why some are lower and some are higher. I'm more of a mindset that as a driver, it's your responsibility to pay attention to the changes of the speed limit because not everything deserves to have the same speed limit. And I think to go whiteboard it all is almost lazy. People keep saying they're going to go the speed that they're going to go. Okay, well then why are we having speed limits anyway if we're just going to go carry? You obviously have parts of the city that are not built up. And so it makes sense that they can go faster and then it goes to county where it's faster than that. And when you're in for Grace, North and the South, it makes sense to change that. But as we've discussed before, I think that each individual thing as we looked at deserves that attention and not just to go, it's easy to do 25 and just do 25. We also have a unique thing of we have a state highway intersecting our city. So we have a little bit of an anomaly and we're addressing that. And I think with growth, that's needed to be seen. But I am against going flat rate city limits, battleground 25. I like what you guys have done. And I thank you for taking the time and listening to us about that. So thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Furr?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Davis. I am thankful. I know that you did reduce. We've talked even with WSDOT. The idea is to eventually reduce the speeds, but we have to get there, right? We need to change the behaviors, and how we do that is we change the environment by putting in crosswalks. As development comes in, we'll change it. I'm listening to what one of our citizens said about dropping the speeds in our subdivision areas. I noticed that underneath our ordinance, it gives a list of certain subdivisions that are 20 miles per hour. And I was like, why don't we just make it easy and put subdivisions 20 miles per hour? I mean, I live in a subdivision. I will not be going over 25 miles per hour. Simply because there are children constantly crossing the streets, mothers with their infants, so that would just be my only change is just make subdivisions, 20. I'm completely fine with all these 35 because those are the ones, the through streets that you go and break off into these subdivisions. That made sense to me. So this one right there with the 30 miles per hour, that looks like a subdivision to me. Again, I hate these maps. I'm like, I want to zoom in and look at all of it.
That's actually South Parkway. Not being able to see fine detail.
Yeah. Okay. That's South Parkway. See, I would have thought that was North Parkway because but it does say South. You're right. So, and then the last one, but I know there's not even a reason to bring it up, but 92nd, 50 miles per hour. I drove that. That seemed really fast to have some big ditches on the side of that road going 50, but I know we're going to be changing that shortly, so I'm not even going to argue that.
Yeah, there's already a subdivision under construction out there. So
Yeah,
as that
so
happens,
it-
that will be a change.
Okay.
Before I go to the next, just to clarify, Councilmember Ferrer's, would this be the time to add an amendment to the resolution if she wanted to take subdivisions down to 20? Would that motion, what would that motion look like? And what would the language be? Would it be subdivisions? How would you phrase that?
I would probably. So this would be the time. State law allows you to put it 20 in residential, so it would absolutely be allowed without engineering study. It would make that section easier because it would just be one paragraph that says all residential. I think the word I'd probably use is residential, but maybe you can make a general. Say that again.
Sorry, using the word residential, that gives me a totally different definition, because then, like, let's say 20th, right? 20th, is that considered residential? Because there are houses.
It's
on
arterial. It's arterial.
Yeah, I think if you give me the general concept, I can work
You
with
can work
legal
it
to,
out.
I know what you're telling me, so,
Okay.
you know, I don't have the right words right this second, but I can figure that out. So I think if we,
Would you rather hold that off, or would you rather have that as an amendment to this?
I'm fine with either, you know, if you're comfortable with me
Whatever you
changing
want
it,
to.
or I can bring it back at the next meeting with the ordinance with the updated language.
I was just trying to pave a road for you.
The one thing I would say is that's a big signage lift, so
Oh.
it would not happen overnight.
Okay, so even though I'm trying to reduce our language, and you have to have, like, it's this big with all of your breakdowns, I'm like, let's just make it real easy.
Yeah,
And
because
then
I mean,
like, to what Deputy Bowman just said, it's like nobody knows what their speed limits are. Well, then if we just made all subdivisions, because I mean, these are your R20s, your R, you know, these are compact areas. It's not like these are our R3s or something.
yeah.
So,
No, there's probably several hundred signs that say 25 that would all have to be
Yeah.
replaced. So like I said, not impossible, it's a large lift, so it would take time.
Councilmember Kuipers? Unless
Thank
you wanted
you.
to make a motion, Councilmember Ferrer.
Pardon, he's asked you a question.
well, I guess I'd be more inclined to see what council thinks on that one. I mean, yeah.
Councilmember Kuipers?
Yeah, so I'm also of the mindset that there needs to be some alignment with the definitions in that, as you said, 20 miles per hour in subdivisions, 25 at school zones. I mean, why do we have to have a crosswalk to dictate that the school zone be 25?
I think that was because it was on a state highway.
Oh,
No, so any schools, it's a state law. So if you have a school zone where you bring it down to that 20 mile per hour, it's because there's a crosswalk there, not just that there's a school there.
mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, if there's a school there, there needs to be a lowered limit. Needs to be 25 at the most. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, without them.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, am I missing something? No, okay. On the 35 that you've suggested, kind of on these outer perimeters that I'm calling it, just questioning, why 35 versus 30?
So for several of these, we're starting at 50. So a jump from 50 to 30 is kind of similar to what the state was saying is probably not reasonable and not going to get compliance, where a jump down to 35, you know, until they get really farther built out and you have more medians and those sorts of things, I think you're going to get better compliance with the 35.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember, anybody else first time through? Councilmember DeRochers? Or Councilmember Overholser, sorry, you haven't gone yet.
All right. I just wanted to point out, as we were talking about switching over residential or subdivision neighborhoods, we've gone through this presentation before, and the cost for the signage was a lot more, right? If I remember right. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I do remember it being overwhelmingly expensive.
Yeah, it
would
was
say.
a decent, and this is a little bit different scenario, so I'd still want to just crunch the numbers and figure it out. But yeah, I mean, signs can get expensive, so there is a cost there.
Yeah, I don't remember quite the number, but there were a lot of signs that would need to be switched over to make it 20 in all residential areas. So that was the only reason I think we went away from that initially and went to this model. So point that out.
Phase it in. Councilmember Derosers?
I just
Second
had-
time through.
I just had a couple things. Just to point out on 503, right in front of Prairie High School, where they put in the crosswalk, they did not add a school zone there. So I guess that theory isn't correct about them having to have a crosswalk for a school zone.
Just because you have the crosswalk doesn't mean you have to add it.
Okay.
But it's a necessary to add it.
Okay. Yeah, that's silly. Anyways, I also like having the lower speed limits in the neighborhood. I understand that you said, I thought it was only like $5,000 or something for the signs.
I think it's higher.
Higher. Okay, so maybe we can educate the public on how they can petition to get their neighborhoods to 20 miles per hour so that they can do it themselves. 'Cause I know that some neighborhoods have done that and the state laws allows them to do that.
Yeah, so the state law says you as council can lower it to 20 without engineering study.
But there's also something in there. It says the neighborhood can come to you like the similar to Northwest 4th Street and 19th. That whole neighborhood got their speed limit lowered.
Correct, but that was specific to the grant we received. It wasn't, I mean, the neighborhood drove, requesting that we look at it, and that kind of led to do it, but there's nothing in law that's specific to that. The only law is that you have the power to move it to 20 without
I was
engineering
pretty
study.
sure there was a petition effort that they could.
And they may
together.
have, but
Anyways,
that's, again, it's not a law. That's outside, that's just something they did.
No, it was something I read that said that neighborhoods can petition the city to lower their speed limits. I mean, that they had a right, that they could do it on their own.
Yeah, so then it would just be the neighborhoods who want it and that are
Right.
concerned with it, rather than us change it, all of it. It's just the neighbor, it's like.
As
this
in
check-
some literature I read about all this, so I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I was pretty sure that it was something we could
We have
do 'cause I
similar
talked
language for
about
like
it.
traffic calming. I don't know if you're referring to that.
No, it's just lowering it to 20. But anyways, if that was a possibility, it'd be nice to educate it. If it's real, let people know that's a possibility so that they can be doing this instead of waiting for us. Thanks.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Bowman.
Thank you. So we spent 45 minutes talking 30 mile an hour on Main Street. And we act like 35 mile an hour on Eaton, that we need to travel 35 mile an hour on Eaton. That goes, you got Maple Grove School there. You need to travel 35 mile an hour on Onsdorf. You got Chief and Captain up there that are school zones. You need to travel 35 mile an hour on 20th that has Daybreak on it. So as I sit here and I hear people say, that we should be watching our speed limits and stuff like that, then let's just keep Main Street at 40 mile an hour, because kids are not at Main Street like they are at Onsdorf, Eaton, and Daybreak. And so if you go down Onsdorf alone, there's 4 different crosswalks on Onsdorf. There's 1 set of crossing guards on Onsdorf. And when you say that, it should only be 35 mile an hour, go ask the crossing ladies how many people roll through there faster than 20 mile an hour. Now, I rolled through there today and our SRO was out there and I literally saw him, and within 2 seconds, he had a car. This is about livability. This is about kids going to school. And I'll tell you the same thing I told WASDOT the other day when they said, well, the 85th percentile is what we go by, our study, the 85th percentile. The 85th percentile is not the ones that are killing people. It's the 15 percentile that are killing people. So when you look at this and you think that it's just like no big deal, we had a neighborhood by the air park come in a couple of years ago and tell us they wanted the speed limits lower because a kid from that neighborhood got killed there at that intersection. So that's when people start talking up, is when people start losing lives. And we worry more about like, well, how fast can I get to the other side of town? I mean, it's crazy to me that's the attitude that we have on some of this stuff. Or it's crazy to me that we have members of our community that don't get outside of their little bubble of where they drive every day and realize there's a lot more. I mean, we changed the speed limits on 20th because of when Lyle was here. Because of all the trucks that were going down there. We changed the truck speed limits on there because of schools. And that's the last thing you want to see is, somebody get hurt in the school zone because we were worried about speed limits and people not getting through town quick enough. So I appreciate the work you've done, Mark. I'm not saying that you didn't. It's a tough beast to try and figure this out. But if you go back to the state law, we don't have to sign any neighborhood. If we follow the state law, it's 20 mile an hour.
Yeah, if you do that and have like the citywide
Yep.
kind of as you come in, then yes, you don't have to do the neighborhoods.
Yeah. So, I mean, we wouldn't even have to look at that if we just say we were going to follow state law in neighborhoods. Every neighborhood's different, but it only takes one or two. We sit here and we just literally talked about that for 30 minutes about accidents that have happened on Main. And that's going to be lower than most of the speed limits that we're talking about right now. Thank you.
Here's my ask for council. I'd like to ask us to set the residential thing aside. If that's something that council wants to have Mark bring back and study, that's fine. But I'd like us to focus on the resolution at hand for now, if that's okay.
Yeah, I would like to move to approve the resolution, Mayor 2503 city speed limits as presented by Mark
Second.
Hershey.
Was that a second?
Yes, sir.
I have a motion by Councilmember Ferrer, second by Councilmember Overholzer to approve Resolution 2503, city speed limits as presented. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Which brings us on to municipal code amendments. And thank you, council, for the hearty discussion and manner in which it was done.
Good evening again, council. I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right. You should have, I'll have this available in your packet. So wanted to share with council our proposed Battleground Municipal Code amendments. We usually do these at least once annually, kind of a housekeeping, if you will. I will go ahead and talk through the table that starts on page 2, kind of highlight the changes by title and pause for questions after each title. I did want to share process-wise that these proposed code changes have gone to Planning Commission. And at their April 23rd meeting, they supported and recommended approval of these. After we review these, we would be looking to council to please set a public hearing at the June 2nd meeting so that we can have public testimony. So with that, on page 2, summary of changes, I will start with Title 8, which is Health and Safety. This is Code Section 8.04.040, nuisances prohibited. This is for our code enforcement procedure. We currently have some language around vegetation. However, this is more specific language that would allow us to enforce overgrown vegetation on private property. Current language talks about that the vegetation has to be a nuisance to public health and safety. So this is some more general language as well. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on? I'm so sorry.
Not seen any.
Yeah. Well, if I could actually drive, that would help. Can you still see?
Kristen, on
Yes.
that last one, did we ever involve the fire marshal with that kind of stuff?
We had not had a conversation, but we absolutely could.
Because I know, that can create fire hazards that could affect other properties next to them, those type of things.
Right, and I would say the language we're proposing is actually allows us to enforce a bit more. So, but absolutely, I can run that by the chief and Dawson and see if they have any concerns.
Well, I think it's good the way it is, but
Okay.
just instead of the city just doing it to involve Dawson or Chief Drone to help with that enforcement because of
Absolutely.
overgrown vegetation is a fire hazard.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, apologies for that. Moving on to Title 12, which is the streets and sidewalks section. And I might look to Mark too if there's questions after we get through some of these changes. But high level, Code Section 12.104.010 and Section 12.104.020, construction specifications and curb construction. Because all of this information and the requirements is listed in our standard details, from a housekeeping perspective, it makes it more sense to remove it from the Battleground Municipal Code and have the code reference the current details at the time of development. Oh my goodness, so sorry. This is my new laptop. It's wonderful. So moving on to section 12.116.060, which is the transportation facilities, general specifications. So a lot of these changes are to keep us in compliance with state law regulations, et cetera. So we are adding this section to keep us current with the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. Section 12.116.180, development frontage improvements. This language is already in the section of the code that pertains to subdivisions and short plats. And we're just adding it here for the site plan section as well of development. Moving on to page 3. So that was it for section 12. Any questions on those proposed code changes? Okay. So moving on to Title 15, which is our building and construction section. Section 15.104.010. This just kind of clarifies in the case of if there's a conflict between codes, which code would govern. So in the case of the International Building Code, if it conflicts with the Washington, the WAC, it talks about the WAC would govern. So it just clarifies the previous language had specific references to the code. And so this just kind of is the higher level. So if the reference were to change, we don't have to go back and update the code each time. In section 15.136.050, related to engineering plans and their expirations, when they're valid or not, we added some additional code language to clarify scenarios where, if a certain amount of work hasn't happened on the civil engineering side or the infrastructure side, if those engineering plans and approvals would stay current or not. So there's a third scenario we added to that section. And then also in section 15.136.060 for bonding, there's some additional code language that would allow flexibility for the city engineer to make a determination for unique bonding situations. Any questions on any of those? Okay. So for Title 17, which is our zoning title, we have some changes proposed. And some of these are to be in alignment with some of the housing bills and state laws that are requiring objective and clear kind of design review regulations for exteriors of homes. So in 17.106.040 for single family and duplex design standards, we have some language currently that asks for the houses to be substantially different, which is not very clear. So we've added some language to define what that could look like or should look like. There are differences listed, and it talks about if it's a mirrored home, which in our mind, if you picture a house, garage is on one side, and then you essentially flip that home, so it looks exactly the same except the garage is on the other side, that's considered mirrored. So in those cases, again, because of our exterior architectural design requirements. We've outlined what kinds of changes would need to be between those two facades in order for us to consider it substantially different.
Question on that.
Yeah.
Does that hit townhouses too? So I know a lot of times you see townhouses, condos, and they kind of have the same look with that.
So in this case, this is single family and duplex. So it's lot lines will be dependent as to what interpretation we apply this to. We are looking to add some additional code, not during this amendment, maybe towards the end of the year, that address specifically townhomes or multi-unit buildings.
Thank you.
But to your point, if it is a duplex where it has 2 units in the structure, we would use these same interpretations for that duplex structure. The other piece that we're proposing changes to is section 17.135.010 for accessory dwelling units. So there's quite a few requirements coming from the House Bill 1337 that requires us to make some accommodations for accessory dwelling units. Again, I'll just kind of highlight some high levels, and if there's any questions, please let me know. So one of the bigger changes is allowing up to 2 accessory dwelling units on a site. Currently, there's 1. So again, by law, we have to allow up to 2. We do define what that combination can look like. For example, you could have a detached structure that is an ADU, and then perhaps a second ADU that's within the primary residence. What is not allowed is 2 detached ADUs. So if you think about structures on the single family lot, you could not have more than 2 structures. So if you wanted to get the maximum 2 of ADUs, you would need to do it with a combination that does not include 2 detached structures, if I'm making sense.
When we're allowing ADUs like this, and I know this is a state thing, but like in my neighborhood, it was built in 1997, and it was built for 40 homes in that subdivision, sewer, all that stuff. Is there any concern about the utilities and the things that were the capacity to add additional ADUs to, if all 40 of those homes decide, hey, we're going to add ADUs and water capacity, sewer capacity, power, that kind of stuff? Is there any concern of that, or is that factored in enough that we don't have to worry about it?
Yes, there is concern with our updated sewer plan. That's part of what we'll look at. So when we run our modeling, we essentially run it for worst case, and that tells you if you have deficiencies essentially in your downstream lines. So we'll know what line, if you have say your subdivision, if people start building there, we know what it happens as it goes down to ops. If there's some sort of capacity issue there, we track it. And once it hits, you essentially can't build without repairing that line to provide the capacity.
So we could have moratoriums in neighborhoods for
Yeah, I mean,
ADU.
I wouldn't call it
Yeah.
that. You would be required to fix the problem before you build, but
Thank you.
Some other just high level square footage size of the ADU. We're proposing, based on Planning Commission's feedback, 1,200 square foot maximum. And then also with the setback, allowing an ADU to be, so the front yard setback remains, but in the rear yard, allowing an ADU to go up to 5 feet to the rear yard setback. In all zones that allow, so residential zones that allow the ADU. Any other questions on Title 17? Okay, we're in the home stretch. Moving on to Title 18, Environmental Protection. And again, I'll look to Mark if there's some specific questions on these. I will say a lot of these changes are required to stay in compliance with our NPDES permit, and that stands for, because I looked it up to make sure, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. So section 18-250-020, the applicability and thresholds, as well as 18-250-025, the exemptions section will be updated. Section 18-250-040 for enforcement, just clarifies which sections of the code apply for enforcement. And then 3 more sections, 18.250.510, 18.257.030, and 18.257.040, variances, definitions, clearing and grading, and general provisions, clearing and grading. This code language also addresses the updates required by the NPDES manual. Any questions on that? Thank you. So if there are no further questions, we would ask City Council to consider setting a public hearing date for the June 2nd meeting so that these can have opportunity for public comment.
I'll move to set a public hearing for June 2nd for the municipal code amendments.
Okay.
And I will second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Farrar, second by Councilmember Kuipers to set a public hearing for June 2, 2025 regular city council meeting to hear public testimony regarding the proposed municipal code amendments. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Public
you.
hearing, off we go. Miss Megan?
Good evening, council. Before you, you have a resolution related to our revolving funds. Revolving funds include our change drawers, where we have cash drawers giving change and folks pay cash, small petty cash for parks when P cards are not available, and then also confidential investigation funds. We're required by the state auditor's office to bring this forward to you, so we aren't unilaterally taking cash out as the finance department and distributing it. So the resolution designates a set amount for the change drawers, a set amount for the petty cash, and then a set amount for the investigative funds. We do have an increase to the cash drawers due to additional cash drawers being needed, as well as an increase to our investigative funds due to the increased confidential investigations we will be moving forward with. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you may have.
Anybody want to get between Megan and the auditors?
No, I saw the changes. It made sense to me, so I would just move to approve the resolution 2504 for the revolving funds as presented.
Motion by Councilmember Farrar, second by Councilmember DeRochers to approve resolution 25-04 revolving funds as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.
So the second item before you is another housekeeping item related to our fee schedule. The change of one item in the fee schedule related to parking fines for the 4-hour zone. This is specific to Commerce Avenue. And the semi trucks that parked there, the $35 that was existing was not sufficient to change behavior. And so it has been requested that it increase to $250. And in addition, we do have an administrative fee being added. Council approved the deferral of SDCs when there's associated improvements. And with that comes administrative time. And so we've set that fee at 1% of the deferral amount. And with that, open it up for any questions you may have.
Any questions? If there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 25-05-2025 fee schedule modification as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Overholzer, second by Councilmember DeRochers. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.
Thank you.
Brings us administrative reports. It's like our deputy risk manager too, not just deputy.
Many hats.
There's a couple of reports. I'm going to first turn it over to
Okay.
Rob to discuss one of them.
Yeah, just really quickly, Battleground University, our third class, this will be later this year. We are going to be opening up the application period, I think at the end of this month. The PIO told me, and I forgot exactly when it's going to be, but it's going to be later this month. And then we'll start classes in the late summer, August. And just like the first two classes, it'll run 10 weeks, 5 classes, 1 class every other week, with the graduation ceremony to occur here at the City Council chambers. I'm thinking the first meeting in November.
Looking forward to it.
One last report, a bit of good news. Mayor, you'll be happy to know that the active development map is now updated and live. If you want to check that out, our consultant has finished their work and hopefully it does everything that you want it to do. So that's concludes my report.
I was actually going to click on that today and I forgot. Sure, go for it.
I was just wanting an update on Northwest 4th Street off of 20th. We've had nice weather and it's the people who came in from California. They did the ADAs, they laid down the road and they didn't finish the cleanup and it's looking pretty rough over there.
That was the one, I got I passed that email on. And I believe, do we want to talk about that or is there potential? Yeah, we don't want to talk about that, right?
Okay, I'll look at my email. Sorry, I didn't. Okay, never mind.
Okay, is that the end of our administrative reports?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Council Communications, Council, anything? Yeah, go for it, Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to thank the mayor and the police chief for attending the Cascadia fundraiser on Saturday night for Cascadia Tech Academy. They raised $425,000 is what I heard. Don't know if that's the total yet, but that's what was put out. And went to good causes with the I don't know how many programs there are down there, 20 probably programs now down at Cascadia Tech. And I know that that we have had some of the law enforcement cadets help us out here. And so it's a kind of a recruiting ground for our chief. So I appreciate you guys attending that.
Councilmember Farrar.
There you go. And I do apologize for putting council on the spot. More people, more citizens have been approaching me. So I felt like to honor them and their concerns. I would like to request that this council place an item on the upcoming meeting agenda or one of the, whichever one's available, to be respectful to our staff who, you know, has this stuff planned out several weeks in advance, even up to months sometimes. I'm asking the council to place on the meeting agenda the opportunity to discuss a public hearing notice regarding the community input on fluoride in Battleground City water.
Okay. Any heartburn with that? No. Okay. We'll have staff put that on the agenda.
Thank you.
Anything else from Council Communications? Okay, council, make sure you check your email. City manager's review is in there. So please get that back. If you have concerns about the format, please get back to us and the review committee can look into that. But for now, I'd like to get that rolling. So please look at that. I wanted to give a quick kudos. I did not have time today. There was a police officer and I don't know how long being across from the high school and watching those kids come out of that. I've seen kids run into light posts. I mean, it's just amazing. So an officer actually pulled up right underneath the bowling alley sign. The bowling alley, she was super excited to see him there. He was there. It was so short, I didn't get a chance to see which officer it was. He was there for less than 2 minutes. Plain as day, still got a speeder. I mean, it's right as school's being let out. I mean, it's atrocious. So I just wanted to thank the police for, I mean, we've all seen it. We've seen the enforcement and the presence gone up. Obviously, we can always improve, but just appreciate the work and effort.
And Mayor, thank you. As you guys had spoke earlier and about the SRO, I sent a message out to all of them to convey your guys' messages. So thank you.
And I did notice that we had a couple life-saving awards too in our police department. So good work out there. Appreciate that. One of them up in Bellingham or Bellevue. Is that what? Yeah. Heimlich maneuver. So couple lives saved by our police department. Nice to see. Great. So that's it for us. The next meeting is Monday, May 19th. There's no study session. Meeting starts at 7 p.m. Oh, we do have an exec session. Sorry, that will start at, we need 5 minutes for a bathroom. We'll start that at 8:58, approximately 15 minutes. So to end, whatever that would be, 9:13. Yeah, we did.
Audio is live. Go ahead.
Executive session will be extended 10 minutes to 9:23 PM.
Audio and video are live.